Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show. It is our 220-1001 Core 1 A+ study group today. It's the pre-show. We're about 10 minutes away from getting started. I guess I should start the quiz, shouldn't I? Launch. This is A+ 1001. This is 2021. It's May. And next, and click a few things. And now you see a question. Now it's working. Hi, everybody. Hey, chat room. Hey, peoples. I've got to figure out how to do live streams again. See, I went 2 weeks, so there you go. Hello, Ontario. I guess, how many times do I have to say I have family in Hamilton? I have family in Hamilton. There is I've been in the studio constantly over the last few weeks, just shooting video every day. Video. And, but no live streams. Now I have to remember how to do live stream, because when you're shooting video, nothing changes. It's like this, cameras don't change. There's no lower thirds. Nothing's modified. It's really just me talking to the camera. So this is a treat. Finally back on a live stream. Hey, everybody. Hey, Burbank and Orlando, Florida, and the Philippines, and more Canada, and Minnesota, and Brooklyn. Dallas is here. Puerto Rico is here. South Africa, Korea, Maryland, my Maryland. Welcome. Nepal checking in. Israel, Indiana, Knoxville, Hot Atlanta, San Antonio, Chicago, Bolivia, KS, I'm assuming Kansas, Toledo, Tampa. It's a lot of Floridians in the house, as they say. It is in the house. People are here in my house. Syracuse, UK, New York, Texas, Austin, welcome. Hello, Italy. Hello, Montreal. Bonjour. Hello, Cameroon. Hello, Naples. Hello, LA. Not Lloyd Acres. Los Angeles. Dubai. St. Vincent. Arkansas. It's the dichotomy is, as I'm stepping through this, is it's Dubai and St. Vincent and Arkansas and Chicago and Meridian, Mississippi and Las Vegas, Nevada and Brazil. There's Lauderdale. Welcome. Good to see you. Vegas, California. Yeah, the whole ProfessorMesser.com has evolved from a blog that had really no focus in any type of training or certification to 100% of that. We get started about less than 7 minutes. You can see the time is there. Make sure I've got Skype is up, got this ready to go. I think we're ready. We got recordings here. I had to last minute start moving around cables, which is really odd because this has been working so solid for weeks. And then I had to go back and do things with cables, like just before getting started, like immediately ran into problems. I really need to go through all of my BNC type connections here. I think some of them are loose, and I think I'm going to have to go through each one of them and tighten it up. It's probably not mounted in the best possible place either. So I need to do a better job with my cable management. If there is a kryptonite, it's my cable management. Swallow McKinsey walked out of testing for Network Plus and passed it. Congratulations. Congratulations. That's always a good feeling when you hit that submit button and then go through all of the questions they ask you and then finally get your results. So good. So good. That makes for a good week, doesn't it? Now it's all just, what do you do now? It's been so all the way go, and then you pass the exam, and then you walk out and you're like, what am I doing now? What day is it, and what do I do next? That's pretty nice. That's a very good feeling. Congratulations. So nice. The 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. Be starting here in just a moment. ITIL is next. Well, someone has a large management group. Somebody has a large number of managers in their company. If you're doing ITIL, Because that's really the only people that would ever think that you would need to know that, is all the managers. People have no idea what you do, of course, are going to tell you that that's what you need. But it doesn't matter, because your number one job, it should be at the very top of everybody's job description. Your number one job description is to make your boss happy. That's it. Because if your boss is happy, they'll give you good ratings. You'll get a good annual review. You'll continue to get things. So that's the most important thing. Making your boss happy sort of makes everything else work for you. What if your boss is telling you weird things? Do weird things. What if your boss is telling you things you don't agree with? Then you be boss someday and you can do it differently. In the meantime, make your boss happy. It really makes so much difference. There have been times when I've not been able to make my boss happy. In my last job, my boss suddenly became not happy. And sometimes there's nothing you can do, but just not work for that boss anymore. And here we are, everybody. Boy, what a long, strange trip it's been. It's all very useful to know this. Plaid Man purchased my A+ course package and videos and notes, and thank you so much for doing that. I think you're really going to like the practice exams if you have not looked into those already. We'll talk about those today too. Never outshine the master. Law number 1. So true. It's what you have to do. It's one of those things that either you're fine with that and you're able to work with your boss and everybody's great. For me, it worked fantastic. In fact, the last job I had was amazing. It was being a systems engineer for a next-gen firewall company. It was fantastic. Love that job. I loved all my jobs that were sort of systems engineering jobs. It really fit with what I like to do. Those were great jobs to have. This is a great job to have too. I mean, ultimately, it ended up being this job. This is the one I really like. I really like the boss on this job because it's me. So it's a little different. But that's sort of where these things go. You sort of get to a point where you're like, maybe I could work for myself. Maybe we could do that. And so far, so good. Because people are here. You're checking in. Thank you for being here. This is when it really becomes real. Like, thank you for being here, because we really couldn't do this. Is this for 501 or 601? It's for neither. This is the A+ study group, the Core 1 A+ study group. So you're not doing 501 or 601. The Security Plus study group we have later in the month is now 601. We've been doing 601 since January. The 601 course is now on my site. You're about 3 months out for 501 retiring. So this is really the time most people will be making a decision on which direction they go. But you've got 3 years worth of 501 content if you need it. So that's always good. I have a full-time job. I have no experience in IT. How many months of study do I need in order to pass the CompTIA A+? You need as many months as it takes to learn everything that's listed in the CompTIA exam objectives. Generally, 2 to 3 months per exam tends to be the average. You might go faster than that. You might go slower than that. When is the Security Plus? Go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar or click the calendar link at the top of the website. Well, you have to go to the Professor Messer website. You might be on YouTube right now. So go to the Professor Messer website. The top is the calendar link. And I don't have the June numbers, the June dates in there yet, but I need to add those. Maybe tonight? There's a lot of security stuff happening in my world right now, so I'm trying to cram everything into a very small series of time. Less than a minute. I should probably get my act together. This is very bright. Let's turn that down just a little. There we go. This is not that bright, but we'll turn it down as well. Let's see if I have got the A+ Complete Study Guide 101, 102 from my website. I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you for your support. But we're going to do study group now. More good questions. More good things to do. 20 seconds and we'll get this thing underway. Let's see if I have the right buttons to push here. Keynote. Got a green light. We do have a green light. Looks very good. Cameras all look good. You can kind of see them right here. Those are my inputs right here on this kind of middle bar. My finger is touching. That's the bar that's important to me. As long as I see all of that, it all looks good. We're at the top of the hour. it's time to get started. Let's go, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 2021 Professor Messer 220-1001 Core 1 A+ Study Group. Coming to you live from Messer Studios, the world headquarters. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. If you're here on the live stream, we're going to do live Q&A here in this first hour that comes directly from the Core 1 A+ CompTIA Exam Objectives. And then in the second hour, I'll open up the phone lines. You can ask questions in the chat room. You can call in. You can somehow send your message via whatever form you would like. And we will do all of that to make some of those things happen. We've got a lot to go through, though, today. And what I want to do is start with explaining to you how you can participate if you are here live. We love it when you're here live because you're able to answer questions live and online using our Socrative service or using the Socrative service that we use. We like the Socrative service. You go to professormesser.com/QA and you will be able to see a question there. You'll be able to participate live. It's very easy. Just pop open a new browser window and you're there at professormesser.com/QA. You can also download an app for your mobile device from your favorite app store. You're looking for the Socrative Student app. There's a Socrative Teacher app. You don't want that one. You want the Socrative Student app. So feel free to have a look there in the Socrative Student app. And if you do use that app, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is here on the screen. Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. It rhymes, but there are different vowels. So make sure you spell it right. And if you do all of that, you will be able to participate with the rewind question of the day. That rewind question of the day asks, let's see if I can get this question up. Here we go. Which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? Pick two of them. We have many options here. We have USB-C, Thunderbolt, USB Micro B, Lightning, and USB Type B. So which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? Pick two of those, and we will come back to that in just a moment. We'll see if you happen to know the answer. Remember to lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. To lock in your answer, remember no answers in the chat room. Let's come back to that in just a moment. First, I want to welcome you for being here. For those of you that are here live, thank you for joining us live. We always have fun when we have folks that are answering questions live. Of course, in the second part of the study group, we have people calling in. And then if you're watching on the replay, you could still participate. It's just not live. There's no Socrative that you can visit, but you can follow along with us just fine. Don't forget about the YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. Gosh, in the last month, I think I put 75 videos on that channel, 80 videos, 100, something crazy. It was a very large number in the last couple of months. All Security Plus, just tons of Security Plus out there. So if you're doing Security Plus, that's the channel for you right now. A lot going on there. We also have our daily pop quiz questions available on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. Or if you're an Instagrammer kind of person, those same questions are on Instagram with a pretty picture at professormesser.com/Instagram. Stick around at some point during this first hour. I'm going to give you instructions on how you can earn 1 hour of continuing education unit credit. If you don't know what that means, then it doesn't matter to you. But other people are looking for those things. So I will, of course, be giving you information in that first hour to talk all about that. Today, all of the questions we go through will all be from the 220-1001 exam. Both the 220-1001 and 220-1002 were released on January 15th of 2019. We expect this exam retirement, if it stays how it normally is, which is 3.5 years after its release date, it is retired. So that means that the estimated exam retirement would be July 2022. Given all of the changes that have occurred in this last year, and of course, Security Plus and Network Plus got pushed a bit, that date can change. So make sure you always check back with the CompTIA website, but it's so far away. It's more than a year away at this point. The important part to take away from this is if you are currently studying for your A+ exam, keep studying for your A+ exam. If you're planning to study for A+, go ahead and start studying. This is not going away anytime soon. You're studying the right materials. You've got the right books. You've got the right content. Keep doing with what you're doing there. There are 90 minutes on each one of these exams because you have to pass both the 1001 and 1002 to be A+ certified. On the 1001, the one we're talking about today, on a scale from 100 to 900, you have to earn a 675. Kind of an odd number, but that's the way they do it. There is, of course, a number of you that have been studying this for a while, or maybe you bounced back to this, and you may have been studying from the previous version of the exam. So I always tell people, do not study from those older materials. This latest version of the exam, over 20% of it's brand new. So if you walk into an exam and you're not studying the latest materials, you're not going to do well in this exam. Don't be that person. So feel free to grab those objectives. They are located at professormesser.com/objectives. I have a link there that will take you over to the CompTIA website. So plenty of more information for you to look at there. Of course, the exams that we'll go through today is the 220-1001. That includes mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting. Those will be plenty to go through today. I've got questions on all those topics we will discuss today. So make sure you make yourself comfortable. Strap in. We'll be able to make sure we're going to take off at a really high rate of speed here, run through as much as we can, as quickly as we can. Don't forget that my videos are all available for you to watch online for free. There's no registration. There's no paywall. There's nothing restricting you. Simply go to YouTube. You can look at the entire list of 220-1001 and 220-1002 exams. Tons of information there. Some of you, though, want more. You want some course notes. You want some practice exams. You want some additional content, and I have that additional content, including downloadable versions of these, both in audio and video form in my Success Bundle. You can find out about that at professormesser.com/1001success. There's also free questions on my website. It's my Take 10 Challenge, professormesser.com/take10. Hundreds of questions there from A+, Network+, Security+, lots to go through. So feel free to have a look at that as well. This entire video live stream thing that we're doing here is available immediately afterwards for replay. You can watch the replay. It takes a couple minutes for YouTube to process it, and then it's available right after. Some of you like to listen to this in your car when you're working out. There's a podcast version of this available that can be automatically downloaded to your podcast listening app. All you have to do is visit professormesser.com/podcast and add that RSS feed to the mix. Of course, you can also use many of your other favorite streaming services. Go to Spotify, go to Google Podcasts, go to whatever podcast listening program you like to use, and it's probably there for you to listen as well. If you check about a day later on the YouTube video description, suddenly and magically, there will be a list of timestamps there that go through everything that we talked about. It's really not so magic. My marketing manager, Lori, who's watching the replay. Hi, Lori. Good to see you. Well, I don't see you, but you see me. We talk, though, sometimes. And she is going through this entire thing and putting timestamps in for all of this, has been doing it for years. So you can go back years of this content to find exactly what you're looking for. Thank you, Lori. And if folks in the chat room, if you like it, feel free to thank Lori. She's watching the chat go by on the chat replay as well. So you're welcome to give her a shout out and let her know that you appreciate it. There's also course notes available on my site. Another great thing to look at, professormesser.com/1001 notes. Lots of material to go through, 137 videos in my A+ course, over 18 hours. So instead of you writing your own notes, I already did them for you. So have a look at those, professormesser.com/1001 notes. We'll talk about those in a bit. Also, want to let you know that there are vouchers available on my website with built-in discounts. You don't need a discount code. You don't need a coupon code. You don't have to fight to try to figure out how to get a discount on vouchers. They're all on my site, already discounted for you. So you can do this very easily by going to professormesser.com/vouchers. And when you do this, not only are you getting a discount on the vouchers, you're also helping to support the site. So I appreciate that. Also, for those of you that have asked previously about my Exam Hacks ebook that up to this point was only available if you got the Success Bundle. If you buy a voucher, I'll give you the Exam Hacks ebook for free. The Exam Hacks ebook is a book I wrote of 14 or 15 life hacks on taking a CompTIA exam. things to know before you go into the exam, strategies during the exam to perhaps get you a few extra points, and then things you can do after the exam to even do better the next time through if you have to do that. So that is my Exam Hacks ebook, and you get it. Everybody has to get a voucher so you can take your exam. Why not get the voucher here and get the free ebook along with it? You can find that at professormesser.com/vouchers. Let's have a look at that question I asked earlier. Which of the following might be used to provide connectivity to an iOS device? And the possible answers were USB-C, Thunderbolt, USB Micro B, Lightning, and USB Type B. And if we look at those results, you will see that 46% say Lightning, 33% say USB-C. Remember, we're picking two, so it's not exactly a one-to-one here. 19% said Thunderbolt, and then it drops off to 2% for USB Micro B and 1% for USB Type B. So here's the challenge, of course, is that iOS devices, those would be Apple devices. Apple's iOS is the operating system that you would find. But you will notice that in iOS, there's a lot of different connectivity options depending on what flavor of device and when you got it. We used to have these big 30-pin connectors. Remember those? You don't see many of those around any longer. These days, everything iOS related tends to be the Lightning connector, which is a nice connector, and USB-C. So those are the two that you will find most often. The USB-C is a recent addition. You'll find that on the latest iPads, for example, is USB-C connectivity. So nice to have that functionality built into those devices. Obviously, Lightning is not going to be on an Android device because that is proprietary to Apple, but USB-C certainly is not. That's an open standard. So you've got USB-C connections on that as well. So plenty to see there. Lots of connectivity options. So if you're looking at an iOS device, you're connecting to that device via USB-C and via Lightning. It would not be Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt's a different type of signal. Thunderbolt's not a connector either. It's a type of signal you would send over connector. For example, you might send Thunderbolt signals over USB-C. It's an example of that. The USB-C is the type of connector that you would be using with that, and Lightning is the type of connector as well. The newer iPhones do not yet have USB-C, do they? I looked at the new purple one just came out, which is really just a newer color. There's not a new iPhone, but not quite yet. They've not quite transitioned the iPhone to USB-C, have they? So any day now, you can think maybe they would. I guess it depends on what they plan on doing with that. We'll have to see. But those are the two answers. If you answered USB-C and Lightning, which was answers A and D, you got that answer absolutely right. Now, that was a question from last month. That was our rewind question. So now let's do some brand new questions. Let's not mess around with this any longer. Let's go straight to the heart of brand new. And this is going to be our first question of the month, our first new question of the month. And as always, our first new question of the month is a performance-based question. For those of you that have never taken a CompTIA exam before, the first handful of questions you get on the exam are not multiple choice questions. You know, the question we just saw, that was a multiple choice question where there was a question, there were multiple choices to choose. You could have possibly got this one right just by guessing. But the first section of questions you get on your exam, you can't do any guessing, at least not very good guessing, because there are many more options than just one that you will have to go through. So I have for you a performance-based question of the month, just as I always do every month. This performance-based question is focusing on network protocols. Our question asks, match these network protocols to their function. Not all of these functions will be used. So we have four protocols that we're going to talk about: FTP, Telnet, DNS, and SMB. FTP, Telnet, DNS, and SMB. And I have 7 descriptions here. So there's a one-to-one, so you're going to have some left over at the end. This is a common type of question you will get on the exam. They do this all the time. So answer A, print to a shared Windows printer. Maybe there's a match for that. B is determine the IP address of professormesser.com. C is authenticate a login to a VPN concentrator. Fourth is transfer mail between two organizations. Answer E is view the terminal of a remote device. Answer F is encrypt all communication in a browser. And answer G is transfer a file from Windows to Linux. So there's a lot there to parse out, isn't there? But I have 4 network protocols. I want 4 matches, which means 3 of these are going to be left over at the end. You can always put in your answer, professormesser.com/QA. Remember, no answers in the chat room. I guess it would be good if I clicked it so you would be able to put those in. There we go. Now you can see the question. So you have FTP, Telnet, DNS, and SMB. And those descriptions, again, are print to a shared Windows printer, determine the IP address of professormesser.com, authenticate a login to a VPN concentrator, transfer mail between 2 organizations, view the terminal of a remote device, encrypt all communication in a browser, and transfer a file from Windows to Linux. So obviously, if you're online, you're at professormesser.com/QA. If you think the answers are exactly where they are right now, then you would simply put 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. Done. Now, that is not the answer. I didn't make it quite so simple, but that is absolutely what you should be doing with this one. Hopefully, it's one you're familiar with. And this is, by the way, the same type of strategy you might see on an exam where the question has more answers than what they're asking for. So you can't just match up 3 and you automatically get the 4th one right. You have to match up all 4 of them properly, and you could get them all wrong. So this is something you should be familiar with on the exam. Certainly a style that you should be familiar with. I think that's the important part. On the exam, it's really not about content because this comes directly from the exam objectives. If you've been studying the exam objectives, you're familiar with this already. So it's really how they're asking the question is the real thing you have to figure out. A lot of people get worried about the performance-based questions. They're really not that big a deal. They're just asking you the same information that you should know, but in a different way. So hopefully this will help you with what you're doing. A number of you have put in your answers online. I'm watching it come through. A lot of you people are Googling. No Googling. Can't Google the answers. Don't do that. Let's step through each one of these and see if we can match them up. So our time is up. We're going to jump straight to these 4 network protocols, which is FTP, Telnet, DNS, and SMB. Let's start with FTP. FTP is the file transfer protocol. It could be used for many types of file transfers, but the one that best fits with this list was answer G, transfer a file from Windows to Linux, because Windows talks one language in the way that it transfers files, generally SMB. Linux has a completely different way to transfer information. It could be NFS. It could be, you could actually use SMB on Linux, but that wasn't the intention with this particular question. Transferring a file from Windows to Linux SMB really didn't best fit in this. And the question here was really finding the best fit for these to be able to have this here. Hopefully you're familiar with FTP and you know that you could use the FTP to transfer files and move them between different operating systems. It's one of the advantages of FTP, and that's why G fits the best for this one, transfer a file from Windows to Linux. Second on our list is Telnet. Telnet is another good one to know. Telnet is to answer E, view the terminal of a remote device. Now, should we be using Telnet to view the terminal of a remote device? Probably not, because it has no encryption built into it. But that is one of those situations where there's no other choice in our list. We had to choose that one. That was the only option available. Normally, we would use SSH, but I intentionally did not put SSH here. I wanted you to understand, and you do need to understand what Telnet is, because Telnet is on the exam objectives. So it's important to know what those happen to be, even though you shouldn't use it. So it's on the objectives. You should know what it is so that you will know that you should not be using it. There you go. That's Telnet. Next on our list is DNS. DNS fit best with answer B, determine the IP address of professormesser.com. DNS, the domain name system, the domain name system server, providing that. Mine is at my provider that I use, but you, of course, have other DNS servers you connect to. But the way that you would be able to type in www.professormesser.com, and suddenly you're on my website, it's not because the router knows how to get to professormesser.com. It's because you figured out what the IP address was and you're talking directly to the IP. And the way that you figure that out is with DNS. So that's why answer 3 is determine the IP address of professormesser.com. Fourth on our list, SMB. I've already talked about SMB. We just described SMB and using SMB to natively transfer Windows files from one device to another, but it can also be used to print to a Windows printer. This is one of the advantages of SMB, is that it's used for many different functions. And when you're printing to a printer, you're effectively transferring files, right? So that's one of those that might be useful too. SMB is printing to a shared Windows printer. Maybe that's one that you are familiar with as well. There are 3 that we did not choose, of course. So 3 is authenticate a login to a VPN concentrator, transfer mail between 2 organizations, and encrypt all communication in a browser. Should we add in to this list the things that we think those would be? Let's see if we can do that. So authenticate a login to a VPN concentrator. What would we use for that? What network protocol would we use for that? There's a lot of different protocols we would use for that. I would choose something like LDAP. LDAP's a good choice for that. Radius would work. Folks in the chat room, absolutely. Radius is valid. You might even have someone using TACAX for this. You could technically even use Kerberos for this. So there's a few other choices in there. All of those are authentication methods, authentication protocols. When you use the particular protocol, when do you use Radius? When do you use TACAX? When do you use Kerberos? In fact, I did a whole section of that on my new Security Plus that describes when do I use these. These sound like the same thing. When do you use those? We talked a little bit about that in Security Plus. So I put LDAP on here, but I would accept those other options as well. I would accept Radius or TACAX or Kerberos as well. That's absolutely valid. Well done. Answer D was transfer mail between 2 organizations. There's really only one that best fits here, and that's the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, or SMTP. That's when mail server to mail server communication is SMTP. If you're ever working in an environment where you're doing a lot of mail, you'll become very familiar with SMTP, SMTP services, securing your SMTP server, anti-spam on SMTP. There's a whole world of mail administration awaiting you, perhaps, at least at the edge of that. That's a job unto itself. That is a science unto itself. So SMTP would be a useful protocol to use for your mail between organizations. And last on your list, encrypt all communication in a browser. Kind of a gimme, I think, for most of us. That would be HTTPS, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So you can connect to a website. If you're connecting, for example, to professormesser.com right now, you are connecting via HTTPS, because everybody who connects to my site is always by default connecting at HTTPS. You don't have a choice. You're always going to be at HTTPS. So useful to have that functionality there as well. That is all of the different options. If you got those first 4 right, good for you. If you got any of the last 3, since we sort of did an ad hoc, let's see how well we do with the things that weren't actually listed there as kind of a fill in the blank. But hopefully that gives you a feel for what one type of matching performance-based question might look like on an actual exam. And if you don't know these protocols, make sure you go have a look at them. They are in the 221001 section 2.1 in my video called Common Network Ports. So that's where you should go. Hopefully you're familiar with those. If not, time to study. Get more of that going. Might help you too, the things you're working on. Let's do another. I've got more questions for you. Let's shift gears and do a multiple choice based question. So I've got one to go through. This next question asks, a user's application makes changes to a router configuration while the application is active. Which of the following describes this functionality? Is it P2P, NAT, UPnP, MAC filtering, or WPA2? A user's application makes changes to a router configuration while the application is active. Which of the following describes this functionality? Is it P2P, NAT, UPnP, MAC filtering, or WPA2? See if you know what it is. See if you know the answer. If you do know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer there. It's right there at the bottom of your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer that question. So that might be useful to be able to plug it in. Now, if you're watching this live, that's what's available. If you're watching this on the replay, that's not available. You'll find there's nothing there. You're wondering, where's the question? Well, it's not there. You have to be here live to be able to see the question. And if you would like to join us live, you can always check the calendar on the Professor Messer website at professormesser.com/calendar, or click the calendar link at the top of the page. I need to put in next month's calendar. At the end of this, I'll tell you when next month's events are going to be. But I haven't added them to the calendar on my website yet, so I got to do that today. I will do that today. I'm also behind with my CEU responses. So if you're waiting on a CEU from me, then you're waiting. I guess that's where you are. And I will be trying to get it to you as quickly as possible. I promise. This question is one hopefully you're familiar with. It is something you need to know for the exam. We're doing kind of a networking kind of focus on these first couple questions, aren't we? So this is certainly one of those networking. Do we know what it does? Do we know what all these things are? Because all those answers, by the way, are real answers. P2P, NAT, UPnP, MAC filtering, and WPA2 are all real things. So it's useful if you happen to already be familiar with these technologies. If you don't recognize one, make a note of it. Make sure you go back and figure out how to understand what those different technologies are, because they all come from the 221,001 exam objectives. Let's see how you did with this one. A user's application makes changes to a router configuration while the application is active. Which of the following describes this functionality? Is it P2P, NAT, UPnP, MAC filtering, or WPA2? How did you answer? Let's look at the results. 41% of you say it's UPnP. 30% say it's NAT. 10% said P2P. 10% also said MAC filtering. 9% said WPA2, making those last three effectively a three-way tie for third. So there's really the top two on our list was UPnP and NAT. Those are the two. So the real question here and the real challenge with these questions is that it specifically is asking about a user making a change, or the application making a change to a router. So there's a router configuration change that happens automatically. Behind the scenes, it seems, automatically to be able to do this. That means that there had to be some type of communication between the application and your router, and they had some type of conversation to say, hey, go please make a change to your configuration for me, please, while I'm running. Thanks so much. And if that happens for you, if that worked for you, if that's something like that occurred on your router, then you would be running the universal plug and play, which doesn't sound like what it is, but that's exactly what it is. UPnP is a network technology where applications can communicate to your router and configure the router to allow inbound access to the application. What could go wrong? It seems like this is a bad idea right out of the gate. If it seems that way to you, then you would be right. It is very bad out of the gate. We sometimes refer to this as zero configuration, since you don't have to change any of the config. Obviously, there is a change to the configuration. It's just that you don't have to do it. So you don't have to go through the process of setting up a port forward, of changing a NAT configuration, of modifying a static NAT. You don't have to do any of those things. It will, of course, do that for you. This is kind of a challenge, though, because it doesn't need any special approval. There's no authentication required to do this. It just does it. It just talks to your router and does it, which means the best practice is not to do this. Don't enable universal plug and play unless there's a very specific use case, I guess, a corner case that might make sense, but I can't even imagine what that would be right now. So that's one of those where you do have to think about what you're doing. Have a look at your router. Look at the configuration of your router. See if UPnP is turned on. You may want to consider turning that off and doing all your configurations manually so that you don't run into any type of security concerns. That, of course, would be important too. And that's why UPnP, 43% of you answered answer C, universal plug and play, And that is the correct answer. You did that. In the chat room, Daniel, thank you for the $5 donation with the YouTube Super Chat. I appreciate that. You passed your A+ 2 weeks ago, got your first IT job at a school district because of my help. Well, I did the easy part. You're the one that actually had to go take the certification. You're the one that had to make all of this happen. So well done. And congratulations on the IT position. Always a fantastic thing. Congratulations with that. Let's look at these other answers that we did not find correct on this one. For example, NAT, network address translation, is certainly a valuable technology to be using on your router. We use it all the time. On all of our routers, it seems, whenever we're connecting to the internet, we use network address translation. But network address translation is not when an application makes changes to a router configuration. That has nothing to do with NAT, although the configuration it could be making could be a NAT-based configuration. That does not describe this process. It does not describe this functionality that is in place. What describes the functionality is universal plug and play, which is probably making changes to a NAT capability. And in the chat room, you're just setting me up for these. Is NAT a security feature? NAT is not a security feature. There's no security based in NAT. NAT doesn't provide security. There's nothing security related with NAT. NAT is not a security feature. I could say that over and over, and people still will not exactly understand. NAT is not a security feature. RAID is not a backup. Just go with those two things. You'll be fine. And there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch. So those are your top three, I guess. For those of you, P2P, peer-to-peer, is a type of software that is able to communicate between one device and another. That does not describe the process of making changes to a router configuration, so that's not the answer we're looking for. MAC filtering is a nice administrative tool to use primarily in wireless routers, can be used in other routers as well. MAC filtering is not when an application makes changes to a router configuration, so that's not the right one. And then you've got WPA2, which is a encryption mechanism, an encryption protocol used primarily on wireless networks. And that's another one of those that has nothing to do with applications making a change to a router configuration. So another one that you need to think about and understand what the technology is, but not in this particular case. Does not apply to our particular use case here. Universal plug and play is the only one here that fits. 43% of you answered C. Got that one absolutely right. Well done. Very useful. NAT is not a security feature, does not provide anonymity. Otherwise, we would be safe behind a NAT. Otherwise, there would be no malware behind our NAT. Otherwise, people would not be able to communicate to our device behind our NAT, and yet they are able to do that, which shows you that NAT is not a security feature. Doesn't provide any security at all. In the chat room, Josh Mass, thank you so much for your $4.99 donation. A+ certified March 2021. Well done. And studying for Network Plus now, which I think is always a good next step. Networking, fundamental networking knowledge is incredibly important regardless of what you do in IT. And I love that you jumped from A+ and went right into the Network Plus side of things. I think there's a lot of value there. A lot of what I did in my career moved from operating systems on a workstation to networking, really operating systems in a data center into networking and eventually in security. It's a great jumping point if you're trying to get into IT security, get that networking knowledge. Well done. And thank you for the donation. I appreciate the love. Let's do another question. I think we've got one here we can do. I've got this question that asks, more network people, but this one's not a network question. A network administrator has configured a RAID array with 2 drives that contain identical information. And the question, of course, is why is the network administrator messing around with this? No, the question is which of the following describes this RAID type? A network administrator has configured a RAID array with 2 drives that contain identical information. Which of the following describes this RAID type? Is it RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 10, RAID 11? It's got to be one of those, right? Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock them in and be able to figure out what this is. Go to professormesser.com/QA. As always, please, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room, no ideas in the chat room. We will figure this out as if we are sitting in the exam, doing everything we can to try to pull it out of our brain and see if we can remember what it happened to be. That's my biggest challenge when I sit for the exam. The first 5 minutes in the exam for me are ridiculous. I can't even understand what I'm reading when I work through the exam details. So that's whenever I'm going through and trying to read. I'm reading through the questions multiple times, reading through the answers multiple times. It becomes a little bit of a challenge. But after I settle down, it takes me about 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the exam. Suddenly I'm in the mode and I can actually be functional. That's why I often tell people, they give you this big block of time at the very beginning of the exam that you're supposed to read through there's a set of terms and conditions. It's called the candidate agreement that you have to agree to before the exam will start. And they give you like 20 minutes to read through it. I'd recommend doing that. If you're like me and it's just a very nervous, hyped, and you can't understand what you're doing, just read through that. Read through and figure it out. Let just everything come down. All right. Now we're deep breaths. We're getting it done. And then finally, when you get to the exam part, you've been there for a while. You're kind of in a comfort place. The adrenaline is worn off a little bit. You can kind of keep moving. So that was the one. Whenever I start looking on those, whenever I start working through these, that is definitely something that may be a good tip. Maybe I need to add that. I don't think I have that in my exam hacks. That's a good exam hack to add. I need to update that book with that exam hack now that I'm mentioning it. Lori, remind me to do that. I like doing this. I like it because I can't write this down right now. I got a lot going on in here. But Lori will do that for me. She'll make sure I add that to the list. I'm always adding new things to the exam hacks book. It's not written in stone. I get to make changes every once in a while for these. Let's see how we did with this one. The question asked, a network administrator has configured a RAID array with 2 drives that contain identical information. Which of the following describes this RAID type? Is it RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 10, or RAID 11? What would it be? Well, 74% of you say that it is RAID 1. 15% of you say that it is RAID 0. 7% said RAID 5. 2% said RAID 10. 2% said RAID 11. There's so many different RAIDs. There are actually many different RAID types. For your A+ exam, you need to know RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 10, sometimes called RAID 1 plus 0 for very good reason. This question, though, was asking very specifically that the drives contain identical information. Identical, meaning the information on one drive is exactly the same as the data on the other drive. Now, if we start looking at RAID configurations, there's only one in this list that does that, and it is RAID 1 mirroring. In fact, the term mirroring kind of makes you already understand that there's a mirror image to this. If you put them up against each other, they are identical to each other. They are twins. This is the RAID 1 twins. That doesn't even make sense. RAID 1 mirroring makes more sense. Where we are duplicating everything on one drive, we're duplicating it to a separate physical drive. Now, that's great for redundancy because we're able to, if one drive fails, the other drive is an exact duplicate. So we can remain up and running. The problem is that you have to have twice the disk space now to be able to hold the same amount of information. There's a lot of disk utilization going on here. So if you have a 4 terabyte drive and you want to run RAID 1, you'll need another 4 terabyte drive. If you have a 12 terabyte drive, you will need another 12 terabyte drive. You'll need twice as many drives to be able to manage RAID 1. But the redundancy can't be beat because you lose a drive, you just keep running. There's no difference in performance. Nobody even knows it happened. It just keeps running. I've told this story before, but I've walked into facilities where I was managing or asked to manage the server that they had in their facility. I look down, it's got a bad drive, it has drive failure. And I go back and look at the logs. It had failed months ago, but it was running RAID 1. And so nobody in the entire facility knew that there was a problem. All they knew is everything was fine. All the data was there. It was working as expected. There's no difference in performance. So, of course, I had to swap the drive out and get a new one in there and rebuild the mirrored array. But boy, what a good point that RAID 1 was able to keep everything up and running and provide that redundancy, all because they had those 2 disks and they just had no idea that was going on. RAID 1 is the right answer. If you answered B, RAID 1, that is the correct one. RAID 0 is striping, which means a little bit of data is written to one drive and a little bit of data is written to the other drive, but it's different data. It's like the first half of one file and the last half of the file. And it's done that. The idea behind RAID 0 is that you're only writing half of what you would normally write to the drive. Therefore, there is a performance increase that you could get because you're only having to write half the information, or even less if you have 4 RAID 0 drives. How about 8 RAID 0 drives? How about 16 RAID 0 drives? See how that works? So you go from writing a lot of information one drive to writing half that information to 2 drives to writing a quarter to an eighth to a 16th. You see how that works? Very useful to have that. RAID 5 is providing a striping with parity. So again, not a mirror, not duplicate information. RAID 10 or RAID 1 plus 0 is a mirrored stripe, if you want to look at it that way. It's kind of so combines 1 and 0 together to provide that. In fact, RAID 0, if it's the right drives, you could lose multiple drives and still be up and running with RAID 10. RAID 11, is there even a RAID 11? There might be, but I just threw that in there because I needed a 5th answer. It's not one you need to know for your exam. That's one of those few examples where you do not need to know what RAID 11 is. I just put that in there so that I could fill it in because there's only 4 RAIDs you need to know, and I needed 5 answers. So I know if there's a RAID 6, you would think there'd be a RAID 11, and there probably is. RAID is not a formal IEEE standard. It's a loose, broad description. It's not loose. It's more of a broad description of how we store data on these drives. Different manufacturers store data in different ways. One manufacturer's version of RAID 5 might be different than another manufacturer's version of RAID 5. You can't mix and match them. So it's one of those that you need to know about. It can be very useful to know that. So if you did answer RAID 1, got it absolutely right. 75% of you spot on with that one. Well done. Let's keep this thing going. I've got another question for you. This next question asks, an accounting department processes the company payroll by logging into a third-party website and adding the employee work hours. Which of the following would best describe this system? Would it be PAAS? Would it be HAAS? Would it be SAAS? Would it be DAAS? Or would it be IAAS? You've got a few options available to you, and you should be able to lock those in. ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Please do not put an answer or hints in the chat room. You want to go to that link right there at the bottom of the screen. An accounting department processes the company payroll by logging into a third-party website and adding the employee work hours. Which of the following would best describe this system? PAAS, HAAS, SAAS, DAAS, or IAAS? It's PHSDI, which of course it doesn't spell anything. It's just, but those are all things. All of those are real. All of those are real terms. All of those come from the exam objectives. So you do need to know what all those are if you don't. This is probably one of the most challenging parts of the A+ is sort of getting into these differently named cloud-based things. Third-party website. That's definitely a cloud question. I kind of gave away a little bit of a hint. It's a cloud question. And all of those technologies that are listed there are cloud-type technologies. So, in fact, with Security Plus, there's others that have been added to this list. If you're taking Security Plus, you have to know XAAS, for example. So you don't want to be in that situation either, where you happen to know what those are. So hopefully it's one where you'll be able to step through and be familiar with these particular answers. See if you happen to know what they are. Go through each one of those, see if you know what they are, and then be able to break out when you would use those. So that's one of those you might want to work through. A lot of you locking in your answer quickly on these. Whenever I see that, I wonder, is this too easy? We're about to find out. Let's see how you did with this one. An accounting department processes the company payroll by logging into a third-party website and adding the employee work hours. Which of the following would best describe this system? Is it PAAS, PAAS, HAAS, SAAS, DAAS, or IAAS? We'll have to see how we do with that one. Let's see how you did. Let's show the results. Here we go. 73%, wasn't that what the last one was? 73% said SAAS. 19% said PAAS. And I still don't know why we all jump on the platform as a service so much, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And then effectively a three-way tie for third between I, D, and HAAS. So for those of you that are looking at 73% wondering, could they possibly be wrong? They are not. It is software as a service. If you are logging into a system, you're using that service, you're logging out, that's effectively software as a service. Are you using Gmail? Do you have Hotmail? Do you have Outlook.com? Do you use Yahoo Mail? Do you, whatever those? All of those are software as a service because you're not developing that. You're not having to build it yourself, given the tools that are available online. In fact, you can't change anything about it. It is effectively locked in. You have no access to change it. Well, I'd like that screen to look different. I'd like to change the terms here. I'd like to change the workflow. Can't do it. And if that's the case, then it is software as a service where someone else is simply providing you with access to the software. They're doing everything else. They're doing the development. They're doing the management. They're doing the networking. They're doing the ongoing maintenance. They're doing all that. That is absolutely software as a service. And if you're someone who needs to not worry about programming, you don't want to program. You don't want to have to do your own development. You don't want to have to change an application. You don't want to do any of those things. You simply want to log in. You want to be able to use the app, and you want to be able to log out. That's software as a service. So if you're using Google Mail, if you're using Steam, if you're using what other things? There are some software as a services available on services that also offer other cloud-based systems. So things like PeopleSoft, things like Oracle has their own software as a service offering. You've got so many different options out there. I probably log in. I use Canva to be able to do your Instagrams. That's software as a service. For you to get the email notification that this was available, I use an email distribution service. That's software as a service. So those are all software as a service type functionality. Facebook is software as a service. Twitter is software as a service. Those are certainly fit into this. So there's some of you, though, that answered PaaS, platform as a service. I think a platform as a service, and in fact, we have it in my course, 4.1 Cloud Models is the section. That is a function that I think about as Legos. So you're building your own application. So if you logged into this system and there was nothing there, and you had to build in, well, I need a payroll system. So I'm going to pull in a payroll module, payroll Lego, and I'm going to stick that. First thing, the login page. We'll put the login page Lego down. Then I need a page that allows me to put in usernames, maybe people and their title and how much their pay rate is. We'll put in an input page. We'll put the Lego down for that one. And then we need a Lego for putting in the number of hours worked every week. We'll stick the Lego down. And then we need a report generator. We'll put the Lego down for report generation. Once I've created all of that, I built out the app online with the services they provide to me in the platform they provide to me, that's platform as a service. So that is a good example of how platform as a service would be if you wrote the application yourself from the modules they gave you online to choose from. You worked their little Lego game and you made it out yourself. So platform as a service certainly is one where you're going to do some application development of some kind. I get into platform as a service. I have some automated tools that I use on the back end, and there's a lot of third parties, and Microsoft included, that have these back end processes where you can set up effectively very advanced macros, which are sort of a programming without having to program anything. That's platform as a service. The one I use for that, for example, which one am I using for that? I have to bring that up and look at it. I'm using, I can't even remember the name, Zapier. So Zapier is a good example of that. Microsoft has their own service. I forget what they call their service that uses that, but it's these building blocks. And anytime you're using and putting together the building blocks, that's platform as a service. So that's where you should go with those. If you answered software as a service, absolutely correct. Hardware as a service is effectively the same thing as infrastructure as a service. So they would effectively give you a machine. There's no operating system. There's no application. You have to build everything from there. That would certainly be hardware as a service or infrastructure as a service. So those would be two other things to choose from. In the chat room, what if I have a third-party provider for the payroll software? That's who that would be. And I have another provider for the cloud. Well, you would have a provider for the cloud, but if you're connecting to payroll software that's run by somebody else, you're connecting to their cloud. So it doesn't matter what you do. You're connecting to their service. When you connect to Google, do you have a choice of what cloud service you use? No, you're logging into Google. You're logging into Google Mail. If you log into Yahoo Mail, do you have a choice of what cloud service you use? You don't. When you watch Netflix, do you have a choice of which cloud service you don't? You're just using Netflix. So that is software as a service to have those. So hopefully that's some examples. Yes, there are a lot of cloud. Now everything has a cloud name. Everything is based on cloud systems. And in fact, I mentioned for Security Plus, you have to know XaaS, which honestly is called everything as a service. Literally is. So wait, it's coming. I'm sure they'll add it to the Next Day Plus. You'll need to know it for that one someday, years from now. We'll have to know that one as well. If you answered C, software as a service, that's the one that would be the right answer. 73% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. There's so much in these exams. They are very broad exams. And one of the challenges we have is once we go through all of this material, now do we know if we're ready to take the exam? And this is a question people would ask me all the time is I've gone through the list, I have my exam objectives, and the best I can really tell people is, well, go through the exam objectives and check off everything. And if you check off everything, you're ready. But how can you really test yourself to see if you really do know this? And I thought I saw some of the questions and answers that people have found online because they show them to me and try to have me make sense of them. But some of them are just really poorly written. They don't really focus on the objectives. They aren't asking questions in a way that CompTIA would ask them. And so I tell people this is not what you should be doing for questions and answers. You should be using questions and answers that have the same style as the exam, that are asking you about exam objectives that are in the list and are very focused on that, since that's how CompTIA focuses. So I wrote my own. These are 3 separate practice exams. They are all for this particular version is all for the 221,001. And here it is. I've got the PDF on my screen right now. We can look at this. You can get a PDF version of it, or you can get a physical printed. I realize this is the Core 2. I just didn't grab the other book. It looks the same. They're really thick books. These are like how many pages? 370 pages for Core 1. Let's do a question. I'll show you how this works. So this is a PDF I have up. It says the printer in the accounting department has stopped all printing processes. The print queue shows there are 7 jobs in the queue that are waiting to be printed. Which of the following would be the best next troubleshooting step? Should we send a test job to the printer and move it to the top of the queue? Should we restart the printer spooler? Should we install an updated version of the printer driver? Or should we delete everything in the queue and resend the print jobs? Now, if you just want the answer, you can click quick answer right here. Notice the icon turns into a little hand there. I'm going to click the details, which takes me to page 39 because I'm only on like page 7 right here. I'm going to click page 39. Jumps to page 39 because it's PDF. You can do that, where it gives you the question again and then tells you the answer. The answer is B, restart the printer spooler. And for every question in here, I tell you why that's the right answer. And so I have a description explaining why that was the correct answer in this case. Now, for me, when I take these tests, I always get them wrong. And I hate these exams that don't tell you why it's wrong. So on every single incorrect answer in this book, there's a description of why this is the incorrect answer. I think this is also a good learning opportunity. Even if you get the answer right, read through the other bad, incorrect answers so that you understand why it was really an incorrect answer. In fact, you may pick up some extra tips and extra information from the bad answers. Every single question in the book has both explanations for good answers and explanations for all the bad answers. And then on top of that, I put at the very bottom a QR code and a link that will take you to my website to the video that talks about the topic described in the question. So you can learn even more from there. You've got extra steps in all of this. And once you're done, in your browser, you can click your back button in your PDF reader and just go to the next question on your list. We'll go to 7 and go through that one. That is all in my practice exams. I spent a lot of time putting links into these books, and they work really well. I like having them in there. You can learn things very fast that way. If your PDF reader allows you to make changes to the PDF, you could even click on things in here. I think this one does allow me to write things. So you could even mark things as you go through it. Yeah, I marked one there. So I don't know if that's right or not. I just clicked it. We know that restart the principler was the answer there. So you can change this. You can modify. It's a PDF. You can make any changes you like. It's a great place to do it. If you want more information on that, go to professormesser.com/core1pe, and you can learn all about the practice exams from there. And if you get them with my course notes, you can even get a little extra discount from that. That might be something to look at as well. Let's do one more question. Oh, if you buy the physical book, does it come with the PDF? It absolutely does. So if you buy the physical book, I will ship you the physical book. And while you're waiting, you can download the PDF immediately and start reading through it. It's kind of nice. And put it on all the machines you use. So wherever you are during the day, it's going to, of course, provide you with access to these. There's no restrictions on that. If I hate when someone has a digital product and then won't allow me to use the digital product. I want you to use the digital product. That's the only way you're going to learn. So put it on your mobile phone, put it on your tablet, put it on your laptop, put it wherever you are so you can pop it up and read through it wherever you happen to be. Very useful to have that there. We have time for another question. Let's squeeze one in, shall we? This next question asks, during normal operation, the fans in a computer become progressively louder before the system abruptly powers off. Which of the following would be the most likely cause of this issue? Would it be a bad capacitor, faulty RAM, overheating, a faulty SSD, or network congestion? During normal operation, the fans in a computer become progressively louder before the system abruptly powers off. Which of the following would be the most likely cause of this issue? Is it a bad capacitor, faulty RAM, overheating, faulty SSD, or network congestion? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer right there. Is this the last year to take the A+ before they create a new one? It is not. You probably won't see this version of A+ retire until well over a year from now. So you got plenty of time. You got like into July. It was June or July I had up. Oh, I've got it right here. I had done the math. The best case, or the earliest case of the retirement for this would be July of 2022. I have a sneaking suspicion it's probably going to be after that. Don't hold me, but we don't know. It might still be July 2022. Always keep checking back on the CompTIA website. They'll tell you to be able to figure that out. Might be useful to have some insight into watching that. But just be used to going to the website. You need to, of course, keep track of those things because they could change things at any time. They often do. Even for Security Plus, when we were getting really close to the beginning of the new Security Plus, they ended up pushing it back a little bit. And right now, things are so up in the air. They want to give you plenty of time to be able to study these certifications so that you're not caught in the middle of a study session and suddenly the exam goes away. That doesn't help anybody. So you want to have at least the ability to have your own control over the timing. And so they do a great job at really putting these out there and allowing you the time to be able to study and move through those. Hopefully that can help you too. So 2022 is the July of 2022, not July of 2021, not this year. Next year, July, well over a year before this would ever possibly change, and it might even be after that. We'll have to see. Let's see how you did with this one. I saw everybody locking in their answer pretty quick with this one to figure out the details. The question again was, during normal operation, the fans in a computer become progressively louder before the system abruptly powers off. Which of the following would be the most likely cause of this issue? Would it be a bad capacitor? Would it be faulty RAM? Would it be overheating? Would it be a faulty SSD? Would it be network congestion? So it would be one of those anyway. Let's see how you did. Your answer, 92% of you have done this before. Overheating is what 92% of you said. 6% of you said that's a bad capacitor. That's what you would run into. And then faulty RAM 1%, faulty SSD 1%, network congestion 1%, a very small, tiny three-way tie for third for those. So that is one where I think some of you, when you hear that the fan is going in a system, oh, that was not what we want to do. There we go. That's what we wanted to do right there, is the overheating. So that's what we would run into. The overheating is certainly a concern, and you can see why this one's overheating. Whenever you have all of this dust and dirt and things in a system, that is a mess. That is not where you want to be. Hopefully that is one where you will run into and be able to see with your monitoring software. That really can be a challenge. If you're ever in this situation where you're trying to figure out, why is my system just powering off? Why is it suddenly not working anymore? Well, if you look at the back of your computer and it looks like that's why it doesn't work anymore. That is the reason for those. So that is the situation you would be in. This is from our video. Let me go back one. Video 5.2, troubleshooting common hardware problems, is where that comes from. So don't let your system turn into this. Oh, what a mess. Don't do that. That is not what you want to be able to do. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, then you want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link there. You want to go to that Contact Us link and bring that form up, put in your name, your email address. In the subject line, if you could put, this is May 2021 Core 1 study group, A+ study group, something in there so I know at least what month we're in and what year. That helps. And then in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, which is overheating. Overheating is your super secret code word of the month, overheating. So that's one where if you're wanting to get continuing education unit credit, send that to me. You can also put anything else you'd like in that message. I read through all of those, but I'm not able to respond back to all of them because I get so many. I get hundreds of these messages every month. So I do get back to you with it in about a week. I'm a little behind right now, in fact. So if you're waiting on a CEU from me, I will be getting that to you hopefully very shortly to have all of those there. This is probably the best way to earn CEUs. I realize a number of you aren't collecting CEUs any longer. You're simply using the CompTIA CertMaster CE, or you're taking a higher level certification exam. But if you are collecting CEUs, I will take them not only from this live event, but if you're watching this on a replay, I'll accept CEUs from you as well. Now, I realize we're at the top of the hour. Let's do one more question. Let's fit one more in here to be able to kind of keep this going. This next question asks, a user has requested a port replicator for their laptop. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this request? Is it to connect to a wireless printer? Is it to enable cloud file sync? Is it to add USB interfaces? Is it to improve network throughput? Or is it to increase the total RAM? A user has requested a port replicator for their laptop. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this request? Is it to connect to a wireless printer? Is it to enable cloud file sync? Is it to add USB interfaces? Is it to improve network throughput? Or is it to increase total RAM? It's got to be one of those, right? See if you know what it is. You can lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll be able to get through this, I think. Some of you may have even done this before. Maybe you have a laptop. Maybe you have a port replicator. What'd you get it for? What'd you do it with that? Maybe that'll help you answer this one to be able to figure out what this question might be. Lock it in at professormesser.com/QA. Let's see how we do with this one. Should be interesting. Laptops. I use my laptop here. Can't see it in this shot. But the laptops that I have, here it is. This is a laptop. In fact, you're looking at the slideware that goes by. That's the machine that's used for that. It's not the machine I commonly use when I am working with the videos, when I'm creating the newer videos, but it is useful to have certainly on these live events. I've got sort of an odd configuration of things. It's sort of been built over time, and that's where those came from. Let's see how we did. A lot of you locked in your answer quick on this one as well. The question, again, was a user has requested a port replicator for their laptop. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this request? Is it to connect to a wireless printer? Is it to enable cloud file sync? Is it to add USB interfaces? Is it to improve network throughput? Or is it to increase total RAM? 68% of you say it's to add USB interfaces. 14% said it's to improve network throughput. 7% said connect to a wireless printer. 4% said enable cloud file sync. 8% said increase total RAM. Those last three there, we just sort of threw off. The double digits were add USB interfaces at 67% and improve network throughput at 14%. Well, a port replicator, when we start looking at ways to extend the functionality of a laptop, because a laptop only has so many interfaces on it, you can't take a card and plug into it, a standard adapter card, and plug into a laptop. So in those cases, you might use something like a docking station, where you would have an interface on the bottom of your laptop. It's the example here. And when you plug this in, it might even have room for a full-size PCI Express adapter card in the back, but you don't have to unplug from your mouse, your keyboard, your printer, your speakers, your monitor. At the end of the day, you just pop out the laptop and you go. And when you get back to the office, you just put the laptop down and it's automatically connected to everything. So you don't have to keep plugging and unplugging things. So that's why it becomes very useful and very handy and very quick to have a docking station. Now, this question was very specific about port replicators, though. A port replicator is sort of like a docking station, except you're not physically putting the laptop on it. And generally, a port replicator does not have additional PCI Express adapter connectors to have that there. Port replicators are a little bit different, but they do allow you to add additional ports and additional interfaces to a laptop. So the port replicator does have some nice functionality. That's a little bit of a larger sized one with that all-important DVI video connection, which we're all clamoring for. Probably more common. Here's one that's the kind that I use on my laptop. Have functionality because I wanted more USB interfaces. I wanted more. This one has an HDMI connection on it, separate external HDMI. It's got an Ethernet connection. It's got a USB-C connection on it. There's a lot of ports there that I did not have on the laptop. Now I have them on this port replicator. So useful to have that. Now I'm caught in my own chair. There we go. All the challenges with the live stream. That is a port replicator. It does come in handy to be able to do this. So if we go back to the possible answers we had, adding USB interfaces, well, we can see on that port replicator that absolutely added some additional USB interfaces, useful to have there. Connect to a wireless printer. Well, it's wireless. You don't need to connect to anything. So that's not the right answer. Enable cloud file sync. Well, you don't need anything extra to enable file sync to the cloud. That will use your existing connection to be able to do that. So you don't need a port replicator for that. Improve network throughput. Well, I'm not sure how it would improve the throughput. They might provide you with an extra interface, but that doesn't exactly improve the throughput. It just adds another network connection maybe to your system. Not why you would get a port replicator, certainly. And increasing the total amount of RAM, there is no RAM in a port replicator to increase the system, so you would not be using it for that either. The only thing you would add is answer C, adding the USB interfaces. Could be useful to have those things there. Hopefully that is the answer we were looking for, was C, adding USB interfaces. If you're doing port replicator like this one, that's exactly what that would be used for. Of course, that's what it's for, and that's why 66% of you said that's what you would use it for, is to add those additional interfaces. This question and all the questions we've gone through today come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you have these objectives. They are extensive. They are free. They contain everything you need to know for the exam. So that one would be really, really useful. And you can find a link to it at professormesser.com/objectives, or go to your favorite search engine and search for CompTIA exam objectives. Take you right to the page. You put in your information, download that PDF. It is a great study guide, and you should absolutely use this. It should be the first thing you study from. It should be the last thing you study from. It's a very, very useful piece to have. And in fact, all my videos were created directly from these exam objectives. Make sure you get your hands on those. We do one of these study groups every month. We do two A+ study groups for Core 1 and Core 2. We do Network Plus. We do Security Plus. We are doing our Network Plus Core, or AA Plus Core 1 today. That's the one you're on right now. I just wasn't aware of it. May the 4th. May 6th is our Core 2. So come back on Thursday and we'll do the same thing except for Core 2. Next month, I kind of squished them together because I have a weird schedule. So Tuesday the 8th of June, Wednesday the 9th of June would be when we would do our A+ back-to-back on a Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the 16th for Network Plus and the 23rd for Security Plus. If you're ever wondering when the next live event is going to be, or if you're wondering if between now and that date, if I change them, which sometimes happens, you should always check the calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar and make sure you're able to keep track of what's going on. Also have a link there to my Google Calendar so you can add it to your calendar, because I do immediately update the Google Calendar as well if anything changes. So it will automatically change in your calendar. It may be an easy way to do that. And of course, in the chat room, do I plan on doing any other certification study groups in the future? I don't have time, brother. Look at this schedule. It's every week, practically. I have something going on. And it takes quite a bit of time to prep for these. So currently, no, but maybe. I have ideas of what I would like to do, but it's always a physics problem for me. Is there enough time in the day to be able to make that happen and make it happen? Well, we'll find out. So stay tuned on that one. I don't have a very good answer for you. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A. Can you believe that? But we've got more questions and answers coming, except this time you're going to ask them in the after show. So stick around for the after show. We'll go through all of those. Don't forget about the course notes and the practice exams. Go to professormesser.com/1001success. Of course, now we got vouchers on the site. The discount's already built in, and you get the free exam hacks ebook when you purchase it that way. professormesser.com/vouchers. We've also got, of course, pop quizzes every day on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram. And all the videos we make are always available on the YouTube. If you liked watching the video today, you think you learned something from this live stream, please hit that like button. It actually does really, really help your YouTube folks when we're creating content. If you like it, click that like button. If you don't like it, I know there's a dislike button, but it doesn't do anything and you should never click it. But if you liked it, you should always click the like button. There's, of course, subscribe and click the bell if you'd like to know when I put the new videos out there as well. It's always a good way to know what's going on. Thanks for joining us in this first hour. Stick around for the after show. We'll see you on the other side of this. And thank you for being here on our A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let me click a few things on the side. There we go. Now, I need to click more things on my side. We're going to get ready for the after show. In the after show, I have to call into my own show. So if you'll bear with me just a moment while I call in. I've got it all ready to go, but it's still, I'm the only one here. So there's not a staff of thousands who are, I really should work on that. I really need to get the staff of thousands. It would be nice if people were actually here and could do this for me every time, instead of you having to sit through it. But I have my Skypey ready to go. I know it's not called Skypey. That's an inside joke for some of you that have worked with me in the past.
Thank you for.
You know the reference. And then I type a few things in on my side, and the nice lady says,
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
And hopefully I will be able to do that correctly. And if I do, the nice lady says,
Welcome, Professor Messer.
Thanks, nice lady. That means that you would be able to connect to this as well. Did I hit the right button? I did. So there is, of course, I'm looking at the chat room. Hi, chat room. Thank you for being here. I will take questions from the chat room. I will also take questions from you calling in. This is voice communication using the telephone. It is a phone number that you would dial in the continental U.S. That is a toll-free number at 855-785-7545. That number, again, is 855-785-RJ45. That will get you to that phone line. You're welcome to call in. It's toll-free number, which means if you're outside of the continental U.S., then you will also be able to call in for free using Skype. No Skype minutes required. you just put a +1 at the beginning. So if you're outside the U.S., use Skype, put +1, 855-785-7545, just as it looks on the screen. So very useful to have that. And that's a great way to keep track of what's going on there. The Skype reference, you will never know. I think I've mentioned the Skype reference before, but it's not important. In fact, it's kind of dumb, but the reason that it's dumb is why I say it. So it's one of those situations. We all have different terms we use for different things. And sometimes somebody you're working with will use a term you weren't expecting, and they'll use the Skype to be able to do that. And that is always something surprising when you hear odd terms come out of, but we always fight about what's the right way to say it and what's not the right way to say it. And as long as I understand what you're saying, I don't care. Call it Skype. Sure, that works for me. Skype works. I'm happy to call it whatever you'd like. And that was one of those situations where somebody just called it, where they're like, wow, Alan, with dropping the bomb in the chat room, a $50 donation. Thank you so much. Alan says, I was a 3-year professional driver. Wow, is this? Did you win any races? Probably not that kind of driver. Played your video over the car's Bluetooth for 3 months. I'm so sorry. Culminating in a pass on your A+900 exams. Congratulations. Going for your 3rd year in the field, studying the new Security Plus 600 series videos. Fantastic. That's a great certification to have, especially now that you've been in the industry, you've been working through all of this, and the $50 donation cannot help you enough. Goes right into keeping this entire party, this crazy, weird experiment going. We're just going to keep it going and doing even more of it. I love to hear the stories. I love it when people put their mind to something, they're able to make it happen. I'm glad I could be a small part of that. And of course, you did the hard part. You're the one who had to do all the study and take the exam and get the job and do the things you're doing. So well done. It's something I tell people all the time. This is an industry that has no limits. It has easy entry into whatever type of thing you want to do, and then you can move and do whatever you'd like. The flexibility in this industry is ridiculous. You don't get this with manufacturing, with transportation, with government, with healthcare, with almost any other vertical. You don't have the flexibility you have with IT. So go work in IT and go work for transportation, go work for healthcare, go work for government, go work for financial, go work for those companies and do those types of things. Really, really fun. And a really exciting place to be. And I love to hear the stories of how people get into it, what they're doing in it, where they're going from here. It is a life-changing industry to be in. And I thank you for your contribution. I appreciate that. We've got some phone lines that have lit up. The phone lines are lit. Let's talk to one, shall we? The 703 area code. Hello, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Oh, great. Hey, my name is Chris, and
hey, Chris.
actually was wondering on a couple of concepts to help me out proceeding after I get the A+.
Sure.
I plan on taking my exam tomorrow, just the 1001. Before it gets any deeper, is there any suggestions you would offer to memorize other than going through your videos, of course, through hammering down more on the trivia side, just nitpicking numbers, or more on concepts? Because I feel like I'm more hammered down on concepts. So should I just go with the weaker link of the two?
There aren't a lot of trivial questions on the exam. You don't get a lot of questions that ask you, what is the average throughput for a USB 3.0 connection? There will never be a question like that on your exam. They don't really ask those. You do have to know them, though, because they might give you a list of different connections and say, of these 5 connection types, which one's the fastest, which is the second fastest, which is the third fastest. You have to put them in order, for example, to be able to do that. Those are questions you might get on the exam. What I recommend, and sometimes when you start these studies, especially with the Core 1 exam, is that there's so many little details in it. There are questions about speeds and feeds and interfaces. And sometimes I see people devolve into memorizing the number of pins on a memory chip. Nobody needs to know that. Nobody in the industry knows that. We don't keep track of that stuff. We don't know. We just know that it's a DDR3 or it's a DDR4, and it will have the number of pins that it should have because it is a DDR3 or DDR4. And you'll notice in the exam objectives, there's no list of pin numbers. There's no list of CPUs that you have to memorize. There's none of those types of things. Previous versions, and I mean from years ago, previous versions of the exam did ask you things that were sort of related to that, but I would definitely not go through that process at all with your memorization. Stick to the exam objectives. That's especially since you're 24 hours now from the exam. The exam objective should be your final checklist. Go through that and start checking everything off. If you hit something that you're not quite sure what they're talking about or you don't remember it, those are the things you should circle and go back and cram in your last day that you have available. Those should get you where you need to be. Don't worry so much about what are the performance-based questions going to be like. It doesn't matter, because if you know the content, it doesn't matter how they ask the question. So learn the content, get that down. Don't worry about specific. There are things you, of course, do need to know that are sort of memorization type things. Port numbers is a good example. You have to know your port numbers. They require you to know, it's listed in the exam objectives that you know the interfaces and the speeds. It's listed in the exam objectives. On my videos, I do try to focus on sticking to the objectives. So you'll notice my videos don't go into number of pins on a memory module, because you don't need to know that.
Yeah, that's so great about them.
So don't focus on those things. Avoid that world of ridiculousness. Focus on exactly what's listed on the exam objectives. Stick to the list. Don't go outside the scope of that list, and you're going to be just fine.
Awesome. And for the second one, because my regular job at the moment, I'm a letter carrier for the post office, and just last year gave me the utmost motivation just to try and switch fields, because before 2020, actually a couple days after Thanksgiving in 2019, I actually passed my Security Plus.
Okay.
Because I was studying for the 900 series, but found it would be more rewarding had I wait for the 1000 materials. Sure. And then just kind of internally transfer within. But on your podcasts, I found out the SOC center jobs, the security operations centers. With no previous IT experience, I'm going to be looking into that probably looking into. I haven't really researched any of the concepts. I haven't researched anything into that yet. But what's the likelihood of me getting a job, my foot in the door with that security operations center, or should I go for a different avenue?
Well, you've got the advantage. It sounds like security is an interesting one for you. Like it's a line that you're interested in, or else you wouldn't be talking about it, and you wouldn't have got the Security Plus in the first place to have earned that. So that is absolutely a viable direction. And if you are in a geography where there are security operations centers, and these are usually large metropolitan areas where these would be, they don't usually put a SOC in the middle of Iowa. Right. Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in Northern Virginia right now.
Oh, so. Perfect. And even more important to have the Security Plus in your particular geography, probably more than any other area in the United States, that is a revered certification in the D.C. area and surrounding spots. So that, of course, is going to be useful. And in that particular area, there are absolutely security operations centers there, probably tons of entry-level positions and them wanting to put people in seats, because you are effectively there. You're babysitting. You're looking at a screen. You're calling someone who knows what to do when something goes wrong, that type of thing. That would be the place to go, is to find those types of jobs. There are very few entry-level security jobs. You sort of have to have a foundational knowledge in networking and operating systems and other things to get into that part of the IT world. But SOCs, those are the very few cases where if you can find one of those positions and it's available in your area, that's an entry-level position into IT security. There's not a lot of those, so absolutely take advantage of it if you have them.
I definitely will. All right, I'll be looking more into that. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to get back to studying and pass my 1001 tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time.
Best of luck. That's always good to know where your options are. So in your particular geography, in your particular country, wherever you happen to be, know where the job hunt websites are. In the United States, you've got the Indeeds and the LinkedIn jobs and the dice.coms, and find the one that fits best for you to have that happen. I think that's where you should focus. And see if there's any SOC positions, Security Operations Center positions in your area if you're interested in getting into that line. Now, once you get that SOC job, you're going to have to go back and kind of learn the operating systems and learn the networking. You don't get out of learning those things. You still have to learn those if you plan on moving up in a security role. But what a great place to kind of soak in what's going on with security than with a Security Operations Center. A great place to be. So what a good question there. Another question in the chat room from Bob. Do you pay to renew your certifications, or is it somehow paid, I guess, for you? I don't know. There are some ways to renew that do not require you to put down any additional fees. If you are simply collecting CEUs, there are annual maintenance fees that you must pay. But if you take your Cert Master CE, if you earn your certification by taking a higher level CompTIA certification, then you don't have to pay those annual maintenance fees. So what you have to pay for maintenance to renew your cert depends on how you renew it. There's a video on my YouTube channel on how to renew your certification in just a few hours, how to renew your A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus in just a few hours. And I step through each one of those and kind of give you an overview. That may be a good reference if you're ever wondering about it. Back to the phones, the 717 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there? Are we on mute, caller? Are we on mute, 717? You should have heard the beep when it picked up. Wait for the beep. You got to leave your name. You got to leave your number. I'm going to stick you back in the queue. And we're going to try another one, which is the 612 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor Messer. Good morning. My name is Harun Musa. I'm calling from Minnesota.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
So I'm a senior in high school, and I recently tried to attempt the Core 1 exam, and I failed. And I'm still trying to restudy, and I'm trying to reschedule soon. And hopefully when I'm certified, I was wondering what would be the best way for me to build my IT experience.
Well, this is the key. First, good for you for not stopping. Once you start working on the certification side, there you will always run into a certification exam that throws you for a loop. I often speak in study groups about the certification exam I had to take 3 times to finally pass, which was on, amazingly enough, cabling. It was a cabling certification back in the day. It was a CNX, Certified Network Expert in Cabling. And boy, I could not get it. I could not, for some reason, wrap around. I had to take that one 3 times before finally passing it. But one of the things about these certification exams is you don't fail the exam until you stop taking it, because they'll give you more chances. Just keep taking it till you pass it. So I think that's great, first off. As far as getting into the industry and finding things in the industry to do, probably the easiest and the most common first step, entry-level step into IT is with a help desk. That tends to be where people focus. That's how I got into the industry. I started, really my first IT job was as an operator, a mainframe operator. I guess that would be the best way to describe that one, a supercomputer operator. That was more sitting there, and that was really babysitting computers, and if something broke, I called someone. But I guess that's close enough to a help desk position. Right after that, I got a job working as a remote service technician, where I would drive to the customer site, fix whatever needed to be fixed, and then I would drive to the next customer site. And then my third job, I just can't get enough of help desk. My third job was a help desk in an insurance company. So I was tired of driving around South Florida. I decided I would like to not drive around South Florida and stay in a desk in South Florida. And that's what I did, was get a job at a help desk there. From there, I moved and started working for manufacturers and software developers and that type of thing. But that was a great entry level into the industry, because when you're in a help desk, you see a little bit of everything. You see a lot of operating system, a lot of networking. You're integrating and talking to people on the security side. You're talking to the database people. You're troubleshooting a weird problem that occurs with middleware. You're working on a odd internet problem. So you've got all these different scenarios that are occurring, and you're often, and this is really the key, you're often talking to other people in the company who handle the servers or the networks or the email or the databases or the security. And you're talking to them about the problems that you're running into and need to be solved, but you're also learning about what they're doing. And so the real key when you get into those help desk positions is, what do you do next? How do you move up and out? In IT, you're constantly moving up and out. It's definitely a situation where you're constantly wanting to move up to the next level. And leveling up out of the help desk is going to be an important part. And one of the best ways you can do it is make friends with all the people who have already leveled up. That's one of the best things you can do, because they're already there. They're where you want to be. So now you can ask them, how do I get to where you are? And then very often, knowing that they want you, that you're asking them, how do you get there? They're saying, well, I got a place. Come on over here. I'll show you. Let's get you moved up, and we'll get you working on our side, and we'll show you the ropes. And throughout my career, I am indebted to people on practically every step of the way who allowed me to move up into their level. They just tied a rope to me and pulled me up there, and then showed me around of what to do. And then I just took it from there. And then at some point, a couple of years down the line, you're ready to move up the rope again. So you can climb up the mountain a little bit more. That's the real key. I think that's the probably most common way that people will do this. And what's nice about that is you absolutely have the ability to now decide where you move up to, because I went from help desk into workstation management, then into server management, then into network management, and then into security. And then sort of that's where the path went in my career, just constant moving in that direction. Your path will be different. There is no standard path. So figure out the one that works for you. You've got plenty of options. Look around in your area. I've got a video on my YouTube channel, how to get a job in IT with no experience. That would be a great place to go to, because it might give you some tips on things you can do to get information on your resume, get a lab running, find some people that are working in these particular jobs right now. That's what I would recommend you do as well.
I was also wondering, like, as I'm building experience, like, what certification paths or like industries in IT would be the future?
It's a little different depending on who you talk to and where they are. In your neck of the woods, you might have everyone asking for an A+. And that's all they care about. Do you have an A+? We'll put you in a chair. We'll give you the help desk position. You may find, though, we just got off the phone with the gentleman who was in the D.C. area. So he's in Virginia, Northern Virginia. Everybody there wants you to have Security Plus. So it depends on where you are. That's one of the recommendations on my video, is that you go do some research. You create a spreadsheet. You go to all the entry-level jobs or the jobs in your area that you think you would qualify for, and you write down what they're asking for. So are they asking for A+? Are they asking for Network Plus? Are they asking for Security Plus? Do they want Google? Do they want Microsoft Cloud? What do they want? And figure out. Very often, that's what's going to drive you in a direction, is you're going to want the certifications to match what the employers are asking for. And if you can find a good connection there and it matches what you'd like to do, that's the perfect place to go. That's a fantastic place to go. I think that's probably the best guidance to go with, is what the demand is in your area, because I don't know what the demand is in your area. And every area is a little bit different. So that's one, there's no single answer. There's no single path. figure out what people in your particular geography are looking for, go with that one, and you're in great shape.
Wow, that's amazing. My final question would be, is there like a particular degree in college or university that would like help me in IT?
Some colleges and universities have kind of caught on to the idea that information technology is its own standalone functional animal. For some reason, we've talked about this in study groups before, is that a lot of, I think specifically about the colleges and universities where I live in the Southeast United States, very few schools have an information technology degree. There's a lot of computer science degrees. Computer science is not IT, and IT is not computer science. In fact, those are two very different things, and really, you don't need any computer science knowledge to work in IT, and you certainly don't need any IT knowledge to work in computer science. Of the two Venn diagrams, those barely overlap with each other. So I would have a look and find the universities or schools in your area that focus on IT, that talk about Microsoft operating systems, that talk about networking and Cisco and VPNs and firewalls and security and databases and email and protocols. And those are all IT things. That's such an enormous difference there between those two that you really have to be very careful. You don't want to go through all of the processes of going to get a computer science degree, which is practically all programming. And then you come out of school and you're thinking, well, now I can work in an IT department. Well, you don't have a degree that has anything to do with IT. You're now going to have to learn all that stuff. So don't be caught in that trap either. There are a number of schools, though, that have kind of caught on to this, and they understand that the industry needs people who are knowledgeable in information technology. And so there are now more schools, an increasing number, that are adding purely IT degrees to their mix. And in some places, my son is graduating shortly with a cloud computing degree. So we found a school that focused on cloud technologies. What a great place to be there. Everybody needs cloud technologies. You can find some of those around. That happened to be a private school, but the colleges, universities just don't teach it for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they don't. But there it is. I guess if you can't wrap some type of weird math around it, they don't know what to do with it sometimes. So IT is one of those where you'll have to do a little bit more legwork, and maybe you can find the right school.
Wow. And which carry more weight, like a certification standalone or like a degree with it?
I go through this a little bit in my video. Well, I go through it quite a lot in my video of how to get a job in IT with no experience. And the quick answer is you really need both. Employers want you to have a 4-year degree, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be an IT degree. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a computer science degree. My degree is in business management, so no technology emphasis at all with my degree. Although it could be argued that when I went to college, nobody had a computer. They had not even been thought of yet. We were still using rocks and counting with stones and pebbles. There were computers when I went to college, and there were degrees like computer science degrees, and there was a management information systems degree that I could have gotten in my business school, but it was simply programming along with your business classes. I didn't want to be a programmer. That's not what I wanted to do. That has nothing to do with IT. So in my case, finding a good 4-year degree, whatever it happened to be, and combining that with industry certifications is your best way to go. Hopefully that can help you out with those. And I think for people that are kind of focusing on that line of or that path to be able to get through college and school, that is a fantastic approach and a good way to do it, I think. Let me quickly check the chat room. So there are a lot of people in the chat room talking about colleges, talking about universities. It's a little weird that universities aren't doing more with IT. I don't know why it seems like IT would be just a money maker. Everybody needs it. It's a very popular line of work. It's probably one of the largest areas of jobs available in the world right now. Why are there not more places? I don't know, but here we are. And we're going with what we got with those things. We'll figure it out. Let's go to the 530 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hi, caller. I heard you pick up.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, hey, I'm good, thanks. You can hear me fine, right?
I hear you just fine. Thanks for calling.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm just wondering. I thought your A+1001 practice exams, and I've also been doing Jason Dion's practice exams. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not. And I've been getting roughly about 80%, sometimes 88, sometimes 95%. But I just have this feeling that the actual test is just going to bamboozle me and just completely do a 180 and just be a lot harder. Am I just overthinking it, or should I constantly be getting 90s before I take the test?
I always feel the same way when I'm about to walk into one of these certification exams, and I wonder, you spend all this time learning the content. Your scores in those particular exams were very good, and you get through and you're thinking, do I really know it at this point? I'm getting good scores. I specifically wrote my practice exam books with what I feel is a very good representation of the difficulty level on the actual exam. I tried to kind of mimic their style. All the questions in my practice exams book are original questions. I wrote everything that's in the book, but I tried to put on an accent. I tried to be the same voice as an actual exam that you might get from CompTIA, with the same style, not the same wording, but the same structure of the questions. And I think the same difficulty level with the questions and answers as well. So if I can only speak to my practice exams in this particular case, but if you are doing that well with the numbers and you've gone through all three of my practice exams, you're in pretty good shape at this point. As long as you've not run through it 10 times, you've just memorized the answers, and you really do understand the content that's there. You really do understand what's being asked in the question. And maybe even, as I mentioned earlier, you understand not only why the right answers are right, but you understand why the wrong answers were wrong. Then you're probably in very good shape for your exam. I will tell people that although I wrote these questions as original questions, I will tell you that the wrong answers in my test sometimes show up as things that are on the actual exam. So knowing the wrong answers, so if you just got it right, you skip by, yep, got that one right, got that one right, got that one right, you missed a lot of good content. So make sure you go back and read through the wrong answers too, so that you know why those answers are wrong. But if you've got that down, I think you're ready. You don't have to overthink this one. If you're doing that well on your practice exams, you're really ready. You can probably go to your exam objectives list, use it as a final checklist, go through, check off everything that you know to be in there, circle anything that's not, and I think you're ready to go.
Okay, great. That's good, thanks. Because, I was just a bit nervous thinking that, it's just going to be a lot harder in the test. But if you're saying it's fine, then, I guess it's booked for Friday anyways, but, I'm good with that then.
I think you are. I think that's a good place to be. If you think you're going through this and you're thinking, this is seeming easier and easier, then you're in a great place for that. I think you're ready to go take that exam.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck on that exam. Those are always fun to get in the exam, the pressure, the studying, and then plus it's a good chunk of money. You're spending money to take this exam. So it's important that you really are spending the money, you're making the investment, and you're doing it the right way so that you don't have to pay again. Nobody wants to pay again for these exams. You buy a voucher, use the voucher, and then the voucher's no good anymore. So make sure you know that. Let's go back to the phone lines. 917, thanks for holding for so long. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Augustine. I'm calling from New York.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Okay, so actually, I guess I want to do two things. One of them is just a short story, and the other is an actual question.
Sure.
The story is related to the fact that you did suggest that people look around your areas and try to see what's in demand. So I'm currently looking at that since I'm planning on taking the test in the next month or two.
Great.
And instead of just doing it online, I decided to take a step forward and actually go door to door, see what people are asking for. And to my surprise, there was a security company who did say, well, get your A+ and come back. So I kind of just want to put that out there for people to get encouraged as well, because the opportunities are out there. And it got me motivated even more.
Absolutely.
Now, my second question.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So my second question would actually be, since I'm almost done, I'm going to be done with the A+ soon in about a month or two. Like I said, hopefully I pass, right? But I feel pretty confident. A friend has been pushing me. I've been taking your course material. I've been taking material from another source as well. So I have, I can double check between here and there, and
Great.
It sticks a little bit more. I'm currently doing computer science, not out of school, but in a job that I started from literally nothing related. I'm a big fan of security, and so is a friend. However, I just don't know how I'm going to, if there's any way I can transfer this sort of information and experience into something related to IT, because I am making an okay amount, and I fear that if I go to help desk to start from zero, I'm going to be at a big loss, even though it is going to be a big investment in the long run. I don't know what to do about that.
Well, you've sort of pieced out, and you're sort of spelling it out for everybody who's listening, that is the process. In fact, that's one of the biggest challenges when moving from one industry into information technology. And as you very well made the point, computer science is not information technology, and information is not computer science. It really is a different field that you would be working in. This same challenge exists for people who are also coming from other non-technical fields into information technology. There's people I've spoken with who have been truck drivers and nurses and police officers and work in finance, and they work in other types of jobs that are outside the scope of technology, and they want to get into IT, but they've been working in those jobs for a while. They've kind of moved up the ranks a bit. Now they're at a point financially, they're making a certain amount, and they realize, if I move over to help desk, now I'm going to be making less money. And you do have to kind of start at the beginning again. You have to start at the bottom and work your way up just as you would anywhere to be able to make that happen. The problem is an immediate problem of finances. That's an issue for anybody to have to deal with. And it may just require getting a pile of money together that could last you a month or two or three or four, whatever it is, to be able to get to that point. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for anybody. So now how do you also, before I go to that point, you also made the point that when you finally get into IT, you do recognize it may be lower money to start with, but the ceiling is non-existent. You could just extend this out and make quite a bit of money over the long term by being in that particular role. So that is indeed the challenge, is how do you make that happen in the short term? Is there a way financially? It's more of a math problem. Can I financially find my way in here to do that? Now, one of the things that might help you, plus or minus, is that you're in a particular job now with a particular company. And this may not apply because it's computer science and IT in the same company. But if you're in a company now, you probably know people on the IT side. You've worked with IT people on that side. You know people in the management of the company. You know people that work in other places in the company. Or you may know somebody who works in IT somewhere else who can bring you in, kind of take you under their wing and fast track you, move you up through those ranks quickly. And they even have a plan. Well, if you can get here and you can stay in the help desk for 6 months, and you do well, and you earn your, XX certification, WW certification, whatever it is certification during that time frame, you get your Cisco, you get your Microsoft, you get your Google, you get your CompTIA, then we can move you up very quickly into this other role, which makes more money. So it needs to be more of a challenge right now to be able to make that happen. And I think if you're somebody who has the focus on this, you have the passion for it, you have the interest in IT, you'll find that you can move up relatively quickly, especially when the industry is going well, when the economy is going well. you can move up relatively fast. But it's really finding the right place at the right time with the right combination and making the finances work. That is an absolute challenge, and I don't have an answer for that one other than you got to find the way to make the finances work in the meantime. And it may be that it's a longer term plan. It may be that you're borrowing money, you're sleeping on people's couches or doing something else, but there may be ways to work around or work through that. And I think that's where you would absolutely want to focus your efforts. At least you understand the problem. And that is sort of the hardest part of this, is knowing going in, that's how it's going to be for you. So you understand the issue. Now it's just finding a creative answer to that problem. And there's just when it comes to money, there's not a lot of very creative ways to get around it. You either have the cash or you don't. So now how do I get a pile of money together, go after this? It's a project, it's a plan, it's a strategy, it's a calculated risk. It is a risk nonetheless, but it's very calculated, and there is absolute upside to it, as you've already mentioned. That's where I don't have any definite advice for you other than those things. Take advantage of the situation, take advantage of where you happen to be, find the people you know in the industry, and see if they'll drop you a rope and pull you up.
Okay. All right. It does make perfect sense. I really wish, I'm not gonna lie, and I got a solid, but it is a solid answer. You're right, and we do have to just buckle up. I know there's a lot of people who are probably gonna have a similar issue, and well, I just hope that we can all make it right. But I thank you so much for your videos, your courses, all the material you drop for us. It's a big help, a big motivator. And just thank you.
Absolutely. I love your strategy. I think it's a good strategy. Stick with it, and I think you're going to do great. Best of luck with that. Let us know how it goes. Always a challenge, of course, to find that. In the chat room, someone mentioned that computer science is under the same umbrella as IT in most college programs. It certainly is, and it shouldn't be. That's ridiculous. That just makes no sense. But you're right. That's where they put it. There's been some colleges where I've seen IT put under the physics department, under the electrical engineering department. They just don't know where to put it. The computer science is at least close, but that's still not the right thing. You're having an IT department run by people who are computer science people. They don't know IT. They have no idea what IT is. Well, they're going to stick it there. They'll figure it out. In some cases, there is a good combination there. This isn't. I'm sort of broadly talking, but there are some universities where they actually do have a good IT program. It's a good fit, and they do teach you the right things. They're just rare. It's hard to find them. You really got to hunt for them. Just keep hunting. You'll find them. Back to the phone lines. It's not an area code, but you're welcome to talk to us anyway. Caller, thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm Dayton. I'm calling from London.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Oh, thank you. I passed my core 2 last Monday.
Nice.
Only just. I got 704 out of 700. Yeah.
That means that you studied exactly the right amount and you didn't waste any time over studying. Well done.
Yeah, it was quite. I was so relieved. I mean, it was. Initially, I was a little bit disappointed because I passed it, but it was only just. But when I spoke to someone about it, they said, you passed. It doesn't matter how much you passed by.
Right.
The important thing is that you passed. So it's been such, like, I've been lost for words this week. The last week just gone by, I've just been in a daze, like in shock, because I've put so much work into this, and passing it's just lifted such a weight off my shoulder. So I just want to say, like, thank you for all your content and your study material. They've helped me a lot on this journey so far. I wanted to ask a question about Network Plus. At the moment, I'm having a break from studying. I noticed that, like, they're going to be starting a new version of the Network Plus, and also this Network Plus, there's not a firm date of when it expired, but I did check on your I've checked previous videos and it said that it may expire at some point next year, March time. Given the time frame, would you recommend that I stick on the current version or just wait out for the next version to come out?
Network Plus, the current version is the N10007. That's the one that you can currently take right now. It was released on March the 1st of 2018. There will be, CompTIA has announced, they announced in October during one of their EMEA partner conferences in October of 2020, they said that they're going to release the N10008 in September. So if you think about that now, we're here in the beginning of May. That's a number of months away. You could take your N10007 and already be certified well before the new exam even appears on the market, or even close to when it appears. So if you started studying Network Plus right now, and I realize you're doing well, just take a breath, take a month or two, then jump into it. But they've also said, and this is from people who've written on Reddit, is they talk to the customer service with CompTIA, and customer service said the existing Network Plus will be around until June 15th of 2022. That, of course, is over a year from now. So if you wanted to study the current N10007, get your Network Plus certification, put it in your pocket, and use that to get a job, you should do that. Don't wait till September for a certification that may or may not be out in September. And even then, when it's released, we'll have limited study materials available for it. Your best bet always is to take the certification now, earn the certification, put it in your pocket, and now you're certified for 3 years, and you just renewed your A+ on top of that. So that's your best strategy. You will notice that they released the N10007 on March of 2018. So you would think we would be coming up to the expiration, but COVID just pushed everything back. And that's why you're seeing these later dates than what you would expect. September is the time frame we're looking at as perhaps the release of the N10008. And June 15th is probably a good date for the retirement of the existing 007.
Okay, I think I will sort of like just focus on the 007 because I know you've got loads of content on your channel. So I will, when the time's right, mostly I'm gonna start studying for that, and also I start looking at IT jobs and stuff. On relation to the Network Plus, I noticed there. Well, I've been talking to someone about it, and they said something about there being that something to do with binary and IP addresses, and you got to work out and do some maths and working out the binary of an IP address. I remember briefly touching on it when I did Core 1, but I think I sort of was not reading the objective and accidentally ended up learning it. How am I saying that great? So how difficult is that aspect of it?
One of the things that is probably gets a lot of people sort of wrapped around the axle, they get a little anxious over this particular topic, is the subnetting. IP subnetting is the term that is used to describe this, where you get an IP address and a subnet mask, and now you have to cut it up into smaller pieces so that you can distribute these subnets around your particular network. And it's a math problem. It does involve, to some degree, a knowledge of binary to decimal conversion, although a number of quick tips and quick how-tos and sort of cheat sheets can get you past the process of having to do any binary calculations. There's a number of different techniques. I have one that's the 7-second subnetting, where you write this chart out, and then once you write the chart out, you can easily cross-reference it, and in 7 seconds you can subnet. Other people have processes they can do on their fingers. Other people use pies, literally a pie chart, and separate out the subnetting using the pie chart. IP subnetting is an important skill for doing any type of networking job. You have to know how to subnet to be able to work in networking. And if you were to take maybe the Cisco CCNA certification exam, a large number of questions you get on that exam are going to expect that you know how to subnet properly. It will be part of the exam itself. It won't even necessarily be a subnetting question, but it will be a question that requires that you know subnetting in order to finally get to what the eventual answer will be for that question. So that's the focus that is important in networking. Now, on Network Plus, there is a possibility you might get one question on subnetting. You might get two. Some people have said recently they got 3 or 4 or even 5. So you may still find that there is a little more subnetting on Network Plus than there used to be. The key, I think, for most people is to have a knowledge of how that works. You will spend a little bit of time learning it. It seems almost insurmountable. It seems crazy when you start getting into it. And then at some point with IP subnetting, it clicks and you suddenly realize, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing with this. Now I can sort of do the math and spell this out and understand it a lot better. If you're able during an exam to do powers of 2, then you can pretty much do subnetting with no problem. I'm a person during an exam, I have no cognitive abilities during an exam. That is not the time to ask me a math question. And so my 7-second subnetting procedure from my Network Plus course is one that requires no math because I had to have one for no math. In fact, that's the process I used to get through my Cisco exams was my 7-second subnetting. But everybody has a different way to do it. Everybody has a different shortcut. There are different ones to choose from. Find the one that works for you. Eventually, you will find one. I will also tell you, in the industry, because I've been doing networking and security in the industry, implementations, design, troubleshooting, every aspect of networking you can think of. And one of the things I found was really, really interesting is that we got subnetting wrong all the time. In the actual world where all of the networking people are in a room where we have a huge knowledge in the room of how to network, smartest people you would ever want to know are in the room. We start designing something on the board and suddenly it's not working right. Something's not quite right. And then we realize we subnetted incorrectly over here on the subnet. It happens all the time because it's a math problem and we're human. And we make these mistakes all the time. So the best, most knowledgeable people in the industry you run into screw up networking on a constant basis. It is just sort of the part of the thing. We have to constantly double check our subnetting. If anything has subnetting in it, you'll notice once it's up, once we've designed it, we always go back and say, okay, did we get the subnets right? If it's not a /24, did we get the subnets right? Because the /24, you will come to find out, is very easy to calculate in your head. A /16, very easy to calculate in your head. But anything other than that, you're gonna mess something up. It happens all the time. So should you be concerned about it? You should, because you might get a question about it on the exam. I do tell people that if you just can't get it, if you've gone through a number of different IP subnetting processes, you've kind of got a feel for IP subnetting, or you've tried it in different ways and it still isn't clicking, and your Network Plus exam is coming up, just throw it away. Just throw that out. Concentrate on the rest of the exam objectives and just bypass that. You'll make it up with the other topics. But eventually, in your career with networking, you will need to be able to subnet in your head, or at least subnet in a way very quickly that will allow you to do this. You don't have time to go to a website or use an IP calculator when you're in a room trying to design something. It's one of those things where you do need to figure it out. And I constantly, if it's not a /24 and we're designing something up on the board, I constantly tell the other people in the room, somebody double check my numbers here, because I'm going to screw this up eventually. I used to work on a network that was a /26. So /26, I've got really good in my brain. /24 and /26. Anything other than that, I'm going to mess it up. So you will too. That's okay. That's part of the process. So find the one that works for you. Find the shortcut that you like. You won't have to do binary to decimal swapping in that scenario, but find the shortcut. People in the chat room mentioned the magic number shortcut. I mentioned my 7-second subnetting shortcut. There is the And they're all sort of the same idea, but presented in different ways. So find the way that works for you. It's the same math no matter what happens.
All right, I will definitely have a look at your videos and some of the feedback in the chat. Well, thank you. And when I did do my core 2, this was what I found really interesting. I had 82 multiple choice questions and only one performance-based question, which I was quite taken back by, because I was expecting at least 3 performance-based questions and I only got 1. So when I initially clicked on it and I thought, oh, it's gone straight to multiple choice. Did I overclick it? And I've gone back. It was like, no, it was only just 1. So I was like, okay, well, 82 questions it is. Thank you very much for everything, Professor. And I will keep an eye out your videos, and also I'm going to also buy your notes for your Network Plus.
I appreciate that, and best of luck with that Network Plus. Let us know how it goes.
I will. Thank you. Take care.
You too. That's a great story, though. It's always good to eke out that little bit of a win. That you need a 700, you got a 700 and something. That's fantastic. That's really a lot of fun to hear somebody passing that exam, and then of course moving up into the Network Plus, which is always a good idea. Captain Zeke in the chat room, thank you for the $5 donation. You say thanks for the help. I say thanks for the help right back at you. I appreciate that. It really does help. Those of you that are looking for your course notes, your practice exams, you're the ones that really keep this going. And I appreciate everything that you do every day. Thank you so much for that. We're just going to keep making these things until you're sick of reading them. I'll just keep making stuff. We've got great things coming in the next year and great things coming the year after that. I've got a nice calendar laid out of things that will be happening, and it's the motivation that you folks provide that allow me to do that. So thank you. Let's go back to the phone lines. 845 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Libby. I'm calling from New York.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi, Fizz. Thank you so much for everything. I love your videos. I'm currently studying for the 101 A+, and I'm watching a lot of videos like yours, like Mike Myers and IT Pro TV. My problem is that the other videos are telling me that I have to know much more than yours. For example, how many pins on a CPU, how many pins on a RAM stick, rate 6, or
right.
Even it goes to all parts from a 3D printer. I have to know the name. It comes to so many things. I know what you're going to say. One word. The answer is one word. Objectives.
That's right.
I know that.
All right.
But they're telling me that it may come up on the exam. It may. So if it may come up on the exam, I have to add another month or 2 to my study schedule because of that. So my question is, will that may come up on the exam, or can I stick to your videos, your notes, and be secure with that?
This is probably one of the more popular questions I get on my site, because other people are running into exactly the same thing you're saying. Is they'll go to other products, other videos, other courses, and they'll come back to me and say, your course was so lacking. You didn't tell me thing one about CPU pins. You told me nothing about the number of pins on memory. What a horrible course you have. It's great, because then they go take the exam, and then they come back to me and they say, you know what? I didn't get any questions about pins on memory, and I got no questions about pins on a CPU or the different kinds of CPU modules and configurations and motherboard settings, and I didn't get any of that. But they told me that it could possibly be on the exam. Also, different kinds of elephants might be on your exam. A lot of things might be on your exam, but they're not going to be, because it's whatever is in the exam objectives is what you will be asked on the exam. CompTIA, probably closer than any other industry IT certification body, sticks to those objectives like they're glue. They stay to those objectives and rarely go outside the scope of those objectives. If they aren't specifically listing on the objectives a very technical piece of information like the number of pins on DDR4, then you don't need to know the number of pins on DDR4. If it's not specifically written there, but I'll tell you where this comes from. So the question, of course, people ask them, why do they put it on there? Why is it part of their course if it's clearly not listed in the objectives? Because if you go back and look at the objectives for the 600 series course, you will find questions on the exam back in that day. This is over 10, maybe close to 15 years ago. That exam did ask you about pins because it was important to know what you were plugging into the motherboard. At that time, there were a lot of other different kinds of memory that you could plug into a motherboard, not just DIMMs. There were DIPs, there were SIPs. There was all kinds of different memory at that time with different pinouts. Now it's all very modular. And so number of pins doesn't matter. On the last series of exams, the 900 series, you had to know CPU sockets. There was a list of CPU sockets you had to know. A big list, like 10 different socket types. And you had to know the differences between all of them. Well, you don't have to know any of that for this exam. And the reason you don't have to know for this exam is it doesn't matter. The type of socket, the socket number for that particular CPU, it's not important that you know that to be able to get Windows to run properly or even to build a computer these days. These days you go out and you find the motherboard. They tell you on the motherboard what CPU to use. They don't tell you, use this CPU with this number of pins. They just tell you use this CPU because the CPU always has that number of pins. So that's where I always tell people, if you're trying to figure out, is this topic on the exam or is it not on the exam, is not what I'm saying, and it's not what these other instructors may be saying, you go straight to the source, which you knew is what I was going to say, which is you go to the exam objectives and you look at the objectives, and if it's on the objectives, you should know it. If it's not on the objectives, you should not know it. And if you're ever looking at one of my videos and I'm going just a little bit further outside the scope of what's on the exam objectives, that's very rare for me to do. But the only reason I might be doing that is that it may be something from someone who's been taking the exam now and said, well, you might run into this type of thing. But I would say practically everything on my videos everything there is pretty much on the exam. And if it's not, you won't see it. And if at some point there have been times when CompTIA has gone a little bit outside the scope of those exam objectives, maybe for one question. So it's not even worth studying the rest of the knowledge of man in order to maybe get one more question right on your exam. Stick to the exam objectives, you're fine.
Thank you so much. That's so great news to me. And again, thank you so much. I brought you notes, and it's amazing. I love it.
I appreciate your support, and best of luck.
So thank you.
It's always a challenge, though. If you've never taken these exams before, how are you supposed to know that these topics are things you should not study? Because there are people all the time, and I appreciate their frustration, is I'll see them on Reddit, I'll see them on Discord, and they're complaining, they are virtually crying that they have to understand how many pins are on DDR2, how many pins on DDR3, how many pins on DDR4, and then the regular modules, how many pins in the SODIMM version of those modules, how many pins on a specific CPU type, and they don't have to know any of that. Why are you studying this? Who told you to study such a thing? Do not do that to yourself. If it's not in the exam objectives, don't worry about it. Stick to what's on the objectives. You will get many more points learning what's on the objectives than trying to figure out what might be asked outside the scope of objectives, which, of course, covers all knowledge of the universe. So don't get yourself into that situation. Stick to the objectives. You'll be fine. You'll pass. If you know everything in the objectives, you're going to pass your exam. What do I mean by the objectives? I'm so glad you asked. CompTIA's exam objectives, you can go to Google and type in CompTIA exam objectives, or go to professormesser.com/objectives, and there will be a link to the CompTIA website. I'm going to bring up for you the list of the 220-1001 exam objectives so you can get a feel for this. Here it is for those of you watching. There I am. That is the objectives. It's a PDF file about the exam. Let's go a little tighter on this. You can learn about the exam. They tell you here's what this. The candidates are encouraged to use this document, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to keep scrolling down. I need to make this into a scrollable view here. That's not what I wanted to do. I'm glad everybody could see me typing the wrong thing. We'll keep scrolling down or scroll back up. There we go. So this lists out every single section of the exam, and it lists out everything you need to know in each section of the exam. So let's look at the first section. In fact, let's go to hardware. Since we were just talking about memory, I think it'd be really good to go to that section. So let's find, how can we find out what the objectives are? That's where they are. So let's look at section 3, which is the hardware. And let's go to this section of the exam objectives, which says, given a scenario, install RAM types. And those RAM types, here we are, SODIMM, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4. Okay, I kind of need to know what the differences are between all 4 of those. That would be good to know. I need to understand the differences between single channel, dual channel, and triple channel. Those are almost similar, exactly similar things. Error correcting, and then parity versus non-parity. That's it. It doesn't ask you how many pins. You will never need to know in your real life situation how many pins are on DDR4 because they're all the same. As long as it says DDR4 and your motherboard says DDR4, then it has the right number of pins. And I explained that in the video. I explained why that is the case so you can understand the differences. And that's why it's not important to know how many pins are on DDR4, because once you know it's DDR4, that's it. That defines the exact physical makeup of memory, of that memory module. So that's where you want to go, is professormesser.com/objectives. And there'll be a link there that will take you over to the CompTIA website. That has everything in it. And it sets the scope for you as well. They don't talk about CPUs in here. There's no CPUs listed in here. There's no CPU, there's no breakdown of CPU other pieces. Let's see what they have as far as motherboard form factors is in here. There's only 4 form factors. CPU features. I need to know single core, multi-core, virtualization, hyperthreading, speeds, overclocking, integrated GPU. And the only other thing about CPUs is compatibility, AMD and Intel. That's it. I don't have to know anything more about CPU sockets. I don't have to know specific CPU pieces. I don't have to know any of that. So that's what you need, is that right there, is that exam objectives. If you have that, you're fine. You'll know everything you need to know. Don't go outside the scope of that. And you can ask, if somebody says, well, I need you to tell me all the pins for each one of those things, you can say to them, where does it say I need to know the pins? They aren't even listed here. You would think if it was that important, it would be listed in this set of hundreds of objectives. They listed out hundreds of objectives, but they didn't list that one. There's a reason they didn't list that one, and that's why, because you don't need to know that. There's your that could solve a lot of problems for you right there. Libby Wertheimer in the chat with the $50 donation, dropped it down. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you so much for your help. Thank you for your help. Thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. And it's remarkable how much it is able to keep things going here. So we do appreciate your support with that and having those there. In the chat room, people also mentioning CPUs aren't in the list. No specific CPU type, no specific CPU socket type. They're not in it. Not in the list. But I find them in books. I find them in other training materials, because in the last version of this course, you did need to know them. And for some reason, they didn't update their materials. I don't know why they didn't update them. That's the real key. I don't know why they spend any time on that. Have a look at the objectives, compare it to what you're usually reading or watching, and you'll be able to cancel out or cross out the things that don't make much sense in that piece of it. I think that's where it can save you a lot of time in your studies. And if you don't know the objectives even exist, It's remarkable that you suddenly realize, wow, everything's in here. I did have someone come to my website. And callers, I see you're there and keep holding. I have one more little thing to talk about with objectives. I had somebody come to my website in the chat and they go, I didn't pass my exam. I just took it and I failed it. And they asked me questions I was not expecting. I said, well, I didn't want to know the exact question, of course, but I said, what topic was listed? And they said, they asked me a question about, I'm going to grab one from here. They asked me a question about low jack. They asked me a question about a TPM, and I didn't know where they were talking about. I said, well, that's listed in the objectives. And they said, well, I didn't get the objectives because I just thought they were just a broad summary, an overview of things I need to know. Like it said, you need to know computers. You need to know networking. I didn't know it gave any details. And then I said, well, here it is. Here's the objectives. It gives you tons of details. They are all in here. That's what you should study from. And they were so happy to get it because now they knew exactly what to study on their exam. Can be really, really useful. Let me quickly even bring up the number of objectives for the Core 1 since we're talking about this right now. As you can imagine, when I make one of these courses, I count up the number of topics for these. And I think on the existing exam, on the Core 1 exam, 570 topics. 570 separate things you need to know. So that's why when I say they don't ask you 571, they don't say number of pins on DDR4. They ask you for 570 separate things. If you know those 570 separate things, you're going to be fine. That's where you should focus your efforts. And that's why I kind of bring it to you, that perspective. And then later on, if you want to sit down and count number of pins, you can do that later. I don't know why you do that. I don't know that I know the number of pins on DDR4 off the top of my head. I don't think I do. I certainly don't know it for SODIMM. But why would you? Why would you do that to yourself? Don't do that. Let's go to the caller 480 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jackson, and I'm calling from Arizona.
Hello, Jack from Arizona. What can we do for you?
Well, I have a question about taking the test, and I recently took the N+ test for the first time. I didn't pass, but I still have a retake available, and I'm excited to take it.
Great.
And I'm getting my way there, not diminished at all. Trying to just learn everything and make sure I understand it to be able to answer the questions. But taking the test, I got to experience what it was like and how heavily proctored it was.
Right.
And ahead of time, I watched all your videos on networking. I rewatched a ton of them just to understand things more clearly. And I watched the 7-second subnetting thing. And I got an understanding of it so that I would be able to do it. But once I actually got into the test, they didn't allow me any pen and paper.
Nope.
They didn't allow me anything in the room whatsoever. They wouldn't. They were making sure that I didn't even talk out loud the entire time during the test because, like, I didn't. They didn't want me to, copy anything down. I totally understand that.
Yep.
But just from somebody who definitely has test anxiety, trying to take a very, very heavily proctored test. What can you suggest I can do in a situation like that where I can't write down the 7-second subnetting and I have to figure it out and do it in my head? What references and things would you have to say for somebody in that situation?
There is, this is a little bit of a challenge for people that are taking this test online. And you're right. When you take this exam in your home, they are very focused. I'm trying to be polite about it. They are just mental about making sure the rules are followed. Well, that's their job. They have been given instructions to say, you're going to proctor this. They're looking at you. For those of you that have never taken this exam at home, there's a number of rules you have to follow. The area that you're working in has to be completely clear of any printed materials, papers, or any writing utensils. it has to be a certain, you can't plug into a television. It has to be a computer monitor. It has to be a single computer monitor. If you have multiple monitors, you have to unplug them, physically disconnect them from power. They don't want you to put your hand over your mouth. You cannot talk during the exam. There's all these rules. Most of the rules are there to protect the privacy, the security of the exam itself, of the exam process. They don't want somebody copying exam materials or stealing the questions. That's what that's about. But as you mentioned, if you've ever taken one of these exams in a testing center, when you sit down, they give you usually a laminated sheet of paper and a marker to write on the laminated sheet of paper with, an erasable marker. But when you're at home, they don't let you do that. They don't let you have a marker. They don't let you have any writing utensils whatsoever. There is an electronic whiteboard on the exam. This is from the Pearson VUE website, home.pearsonvue.com/onview/whiteboard. There's the URL for those of you wanting to visit this, where it describes the online whiteboard. And perhaps more importantly, at the bottom of this page, you can actually use it. So you can kind of click on it. You can type things in. You can put in the different numbers that you want to put in and figure out all the details. I misspelled subnetting. But you can work with it a little bit, try out some of the things that are here, see how it works. It's not very good to write on with your mouse, but it's very nice to be able to just type on. You can type things into this, and you can build out all your charts in here if you wanted to. And that same whiteboard is available in all the questions on your exam. That's just a button on the top of your screen, that little whiteboard button. There it is. That brings up the whiteboard on the OnView. To be fair, it's not the same as if you were using a piece of paper and a pen. It's not even close to being the same, not nearly as effective. Yeah. But it at least is similar in scope, similar in style to what you would be writing down on a piece of paper. It's just hard to use the 7-second subnetting because that requires kind of an extensive chart that you would build out. So I can appreciate that. It lends itself better for you going to an actual testing center, sitting down and taking the exam in a testing center. Those you would still have a piece of paper and a pen or something to write on with those pieces. So just off the top of my head, I do have my retake available. Do you know if I'm able to do my retake at a testing center instead of online? Sure.
Or
is
it just online because I purchased it that way?
No, you can take as long as you have the voucher and you're scheduling it out, you can schedule for online or you can schedule in person. You can mix and match those. It doesn't matter.
Cool. I think I might do that next time. I'm really excited about taking the test again, and I learned a lot about taking it and then know what I've been studying about since then. And also to prepare myself better for the test because, oh my gosh, funny story. Like a week before I took the test, I actually bruised my ribs quadding. And so during the test, I was actually wincing in pain, and they kept stopping the test and being like, "Are you talking?
Right.
You cannot say. You cannot speak. You have to be quiet." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I've been paid."
They are very, very. It's very important to their job that they find any fault. If you're going outside the scope of the rules, they will let you know about it during the exam. Whether it's something like that, which is relatively innocuous, but of course they're just trying to keep somebody from making the test experience less private than what it already is. So I get it, but yeah, you're right. You have to be very careful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering my question. I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for all your videos and everything you do. I'm a big fan, and I cannot wait to succeed and pass my test and get going.
We can't wait to hear about it too. Best of luck, Jack.
Thank you.
This is one of those things I think that if I had to take an exam right now, I would probably go to a test center too. Now, I'm in a part of the world, I'm in Florida, and we've been open forever, for a long time. We shut down for a few months, but we all came out when the sun came out, we came out too, and everything's been great here. So we're very fortunate. And because of that, I would probably still go to a test center. There have been a number of situations online where people have taken their tests online and something has happened outside the scope of what they were able to control, and it has caused problems on their exam. So that's why I think that for me, going to a separate facility and doing it there is a little bit easier to deal with than at home. But for other people where things are still closed, or you may be an hour away from a testing center, take it online. Why not? That's why it's there. So that's why I think where a lot of people should work on those too. Let's go back to the phone calls. Return caller. Kenny is on the line and has been holding for so long. Thanks for holding for so long.
Hi, Professor. How are you?
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I have a question. Well, it's not related to the test, but it's more like a PC laptop issue. I have a Dell that's run 7000 series. I had it for 6 years. It's going fine, but then it started doing weird things like starting to slow down. Browser's starting hard to open up now. I mean, I do a virus check and everything, but I'm noticing that maybe I should get this PC checked. Maybe this isn't virus that I don't know about, and it's affecting everything because everything is loading up slower now. And I thought maybe my PC, but I would take good care of it, I clean everything. So I was optioning, should I take the technician or try to figure it out myself? So that's what I'm at the odds with.
This is probably one of the most challenging and most irritating problems you have to deal with in your career, whether it's your machine or someone else's, is the system is slow. That is the worst kind of help desk ticket you get. The network is slow, the server is slow, the internet is slow, my computer is slow. Because where do you even go with that? Where do you start? Where do you even start breaking these things down? And there's so many different places that could be causing this. We do a little bit discussion, a little bit of that in the A+, but it doesn't even go close into the depths of breaking this down that you would need to go. And I've got a story about my system being slow and what I found the problem to be, which was something that I was never prepared to find, that I didn't even realize that it was a problem that could happen that caused my computer to be slow. But you would normally start with the big things, and you've already done some of this. You grab the latest malware bytes and you run a scan. That's like number one. And you think you got a malware, that's my go-to. There's other go-tos you can go for malware, but malware bytes is a good go-to to first get malware bytes, get the latest signatures, run that scan. If it comes back, if malware bytes doesn't find anything, you can feel pretty good at that point that you don't have some type of known vulnerability, known malware on your system. You could certainly have some type of 0-day that has manifested itself from somewhere, but that would be very unusual. Eventually, and very quickly, you would be able to find it with a signature update and being able to scan with malware bytes. The other thing I tend to look at, especially in these older systems, is sort of the things that happen when a system gets old. If it has a hard drive, the hard drive could be going bad, and as it's having a harder time reading information from the drive, it seems to be slowing down on the screen because of the problem reading and writing to the hard drive. That's certainly the case. I ran into a problem with my laptop slowing down and slowing down and slowing down and being horrible because the airflow was obstructed. And it's remarkable in laptops how little has to be linted up for it to cause significant performance problems. So that was an important one for me. I cleaned the lint out of my laptop, and it was like I got a brand new system because it had been running so slow. Because when a laptop heats up, it takes the CPU and starts moving it down to a lower CPU level, so the whole system slows down. If it can run and keep cool, it will run much faster. So that was an important thing for me. But of course, sometimes it's something messed up in the operating system. In one system of mine that had a slowdown, there was a section of the registry that had been, and I had not realized this at the time, is that the registry has permissions. Like certain areas of the registry can have different permissions than other areas of the registry. And part of the registry had somehow, during something, had configured part of the registry to be set to read only. So it could not be written to. Nothing could be changed in that section of the registry. And when I booted up my computer, it would take 10 minutes to boot. Well, it turns out there was a process when it was starting up that was trying to write to the registry. It couldn't do it. It would wait. There would be a timeout. It would try again. It couldn't do it. It would time out. It would try again. It couldn't do it. It would do that 10 times. And it would finally decide, well, that's not going to work. Let's just keep going. And so I found that area of the registry. I changed the permissions to allow read-write because it should be set that way in that section of the registry. Rebooted the machine, booted up in an instant. So it's sometimes hardware. It's sometimes software. But you're going to have to do a little more research. You have to look at your event viewer. You have to be able to break down maybe process. Is it process viewer? What's the one from that was the Microsoft Process Explorer? Process Explorer is an amazing utility. This is from Microsoft directly. Process Explorer is a fantastic utility because it really shows you what every process is doing. The other one I use is probably even more. And if you really want to make yourself crazy and you really want to understand what Windows is doing under the surface, run Process Monitor. This is also from Microsoft. Just type in Process Monitor. We want to type in sysinternals Process Monitor or Microsoft Process Monitor. These are third-party utilities that you can run. Process Monitor is ridiculous in the amount of information it provides, but it can really show you where things are slowing down. That's what I used to find the problem with the registry was Process Monitor. It's overwhelming. You need to learn how to filter out a lot of what's going by, but you will have a healthy respect for Windows after trying to troubleshoot a slowdown in Windows with Process Monitor, but an amazing tool that nothing else provides to you. It's remarkable we don't talk about it more, really. But those two, that's where I would focus my efforts on this. And ultimately, a nice hardware diagnostic might be in your future, too. Check the hard drive, check the rest of the memory, make sure the hardware of the system is good, then shift your gears over to the OS if that's the case.
Okay, cool. You think I should get rid of my I have a Microsoft Office Professional from 2007, which I don't really use them more. You think it's a good idea? I should get rid of that because I don't think they do updates on that anymore.
They definitely don't do updates on that anymore. An upgrade and update may be in your future. This is kind of the problem when they do the end of life and end of service life with these old operating systems is that you can't normally upgrade an older piece of hardware because Windows 10 doesn't have the drivers for that older piece of hardware. So you may find that the laptop or the system you would like to upgrade can only partially upgrade. Maybe it loads Windows, but it can't use the wireless card, or it can't work with that USB driver. You might run into problems like that, or it might work fine. It just depends on what support Dell might provide.
I really just don't use it more. I use more the new Office now, so I may just end up getting rid of it because I hardly use it anymore now. So I may just end up deleting it altogether. So it might be that's best for me to do.
That's always and often the better option, as it turns out. So it's certainly an easier option, if nothing. It's a little more expensive, but it's easier.
Yes. Well, thank you for your help, Professor. And I'm working on the work studying my 1001 A+, so it's a process, but I'm getting through it. So
keep on keeping on, Kenny. Best of luck.
All right, thank you.
That's a challenge. Slowdowns. I hate troubleshooting slowdowns. I had one in Mac OS the other day, a slowdown, and it involved going through just tons of log files and figuring these things out. You just never know what you would run into. And thank you. There's always that person in the chat room. You should be running Linux. What are you doing? Run Linux on your workstation. That's right. Like as if Windows doesn't mess up my wireless driver enough. We'll run Linux. I'm sure it will work fine. What could possibly go wrong? I always make fun of Linux. It's interesting because if you're on ProfessorMesser.com right now, it's all Linux. I do tons of Linux administration. I was on there this morning making some changes in Linux. I was on there this weekend making some changes in Linux. I have an extensive Linux distribution that I'm using to run this business. But I always make fun of it because really just because it makes people crazy, is I say, well, I'd run Linux, but it just doesn't work. Nobody's ever gotten Linux to work. And of course, that's not true because we all use it to do amazing things. I just say that to make Linux people crazy. So I look forward to your calls and letters. And by the way, if you do have an old machine and you would like to get that machine back up and running and get it running in a way where it's actually functional, Linux actually is that's a good piece of advice. That's a really good idea. It only runs Windows 7. You can't upgrade it to Windows 10. There's your Linux machine. I think that's a great idea. It's spot on. Why not? Let's do another phone call. 720. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going? My name's Andrew. I'm calling from Georgia.
Hello, Andrew. What can we do for you?
Hey, not so much of a question at all. I just wanted to call and thank you for your content. I'm currently in the process of transitioning out of the military. I've been in the Navy for 5.5 years, and I took my Core 1 and Core 2 exams yesterday. Passed them both. But before that, I was just cramming all your videos as much as I could that whole morning. Because
and both on the same day. Before we get too far into that, you took both the 1001 and the 1002 on the same day.
Both on the same day.
Wow. Okay.
I underestimated them significantly. I didn't realize how hard they were going to be, and but yeah, I passed them both, thankfully.
There you go.
And part of that is thanks to you.
Hey,
so
it worked out.
I just want to say thank you for that. But I just wanted to also maybe give some information to other people who might be in the realm of if they're in the military and they're thinking about getting out, or if they're in the process of transitioning already. Some of the resources that are available to you that I utilized, Navy Cool. I've been in the Navy for 5.5 years. Navy Cool will provide you with free vouchers to take A+, Security Plus, Network Plus.
Wow.
All of these certifications for free. So please utilize that. But if you are in the realm of 6 months prior to your EAOS, which is your get out of the Navy date, get out of the military date, you can't use Navy Cool. But another cool resource is called SkillBridge. And I'm signed up to do SkillBridge at New Horizons. And what they are providing for me is free course material, classes, in-person classes for A+, MTA, Network Plus, Security Plus, CISA, which is a cybersecurity analyst, and certified ethical hacker. So just utilize these resources, and you can get all these certifications for free. Or if you're, thinking about getting into this industry, please, like if you're in the military, just ask and utilize these resources because, they can save you a whole heck of a lot of money.
You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars of things that's what it would cost you if you were not able to take advantage of those services. So you're absolutely right. If you have in the position where those are available to you, you're right to be shouting this from the rooftop that everyone who has access to those should absolutely be doing that.
Correct. Yeah. But I just wanted to extend my gratitude to you because, man, your videos helped me out so much prior to the exam. And, who knows if I would have passed them without them.
Well, you did a great job. Taking them both in one day is not easy, to say the least, but you pulled it off, and that's the important part. So is there now the next step? Is there another certification after this?
Yeah, so I start that SkillBridge program in June. And since I already did my A+, I let them know, and they're like, great, awesome. You don't even have to waste your time with that with us. You're going to get jumped right into MTA.
Nice.
And then after that, it's all structured. Network Plus after that, Security Plus, Cybersecurity Analyst, and then CEH. So they have it all planned out for you. It's an awesome program. Please look into it. It's not just for IT, though. If you're interested in, construction or business, they have all these programs for all those different jobs. So please utilize that.
That's fantastic and good knowledge, information I did not know. So thank you for calling in and letting us know about that, Andrew. Congrats on the A+. Best of luck with that program coming up. You're going to get some great certifications out of that. And also thank you so much for your service. Best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Those are great things to know. So if you're, and I mentioned that, if you're in the position where these things can be provided for you for free, that's thousands of dollars of information just handed over. If you're not in the military and you would still like a break on maybe your vouchers, there is an academic store if you're a college student. You have to be a college student in class to get these vouchers, but it's from the academic store. And I do have a link to that store. If you go to professormesser.com/vouchers, at the very top of the screen, I say, don't buy these if you're a student. Go over here, click this link, go buy them there. So they're half price if you're a student. If you're not a student, you don't have a choice. They won't sell them to you if you're not a student. They check you out. They make sure you put documentation in that says what classes you're in. But they're at least discounted on my site. So at least you get that. You don't have to pay full price. Also from the chat room, I don't know why I didn't mention this, but that's why the chat room is here, because you guys are so smart. If you're upgrading a laptop or really any computer, and it's one of these old machines with an old hard drive, that's the one you stick the SSD in. It's like a new machine. And you're absolutely right. It's one of the best upgrades you could ever hope to do for any machine is to replace a hard drive with the SSD. That should have been the first thing I said. That's relatively inexpensive these days as well. So you just slide in the SSD and suddenly it's like a new computer. So that's another thing to think about. Well played, chat room. Back to phone calls. Let's go to 571. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, awesome. My name is Oscar. I'm a returner caller. I called you back in October. How are you doing?
Well, thanks for calling again, Oscar.
Okay, so once again, I'm here in Fairfax, Virginia, and I'm actually doing this on my lunch break. Between then and now, I actually got a job in Amazon, but not exactly in AWS, but starting from on dissertation associate. I'm actually calling during my lunch break, and here's one thing that I wanted to know. I finally got my life a little bit more sorted out, so I actually have a little more time to study for the test.
Great.
But I've been going through your website to see the supplies that you recommended, and I see I think it's the notes and exam combo, the one they say is very popular because it's a comprehensive notes and practice. I wanted to know two things. One, is it possible? Do you offer a discount if you buy for both Core 1 and Core 2? And two, do you offer this in paper format?
So two very important questions about this. So if you've ever been to my website, you may have seen, especially if you're interested in the things I've been talking about in that first hour, where I talked about course notes, I talked about practice exams, I have combos of those things available, but I sell them sort of as the 221,001 is one set, and the 221,002 is another set. And I sell them as both digital products, and I give you the option for physical products as well. The one that comes up by default is digital. And if you don't, it's hard to see. It's at the bottom of this. But at the very bottom of that pricing chart is a little button that says, looking for the physical edition? Click here. And it takes you to another page where it has pricing. It's a little more expensive for the physical version, but at least you have the option if you wanted to click on that. Another thing you'll notice, and you don't see it here, is I do give you a discount on a number of things, at least for the Success Bundle, if you buy the Core 1 and Core 2 at the same time. It's not obvious from here, but if you were to click, for instance, the Core 1 Success Bundle, where I say get everything, if you click that, it brings up a screen that says, well, if you're interested in this, if you want to add on the Core 2, I'll do it right now for a discounted price. And I discount it based on that. So that's why it's sort of it's a difficult challenge, because I really do recommend you take one exam at a time. But I think if you're taking both one exam, you're probably going to be taking both. And why don't I give you a little bit of a cost break if you know you're going to need all of these resources for both of those? So it does count, because if you buy the course notes by themselves, it's more expensive than buying them in a combo with the course notes and exam. So sometimes the discount is built in and you can see it on the screen. Sometimes the discount is something you don't realize until you click the button to buy it. And then I'll present to you an offer that says, I can give you a little bit of a discount if you want. It's up to you. Say yes or no. And then you can decide at that point what makes sense. You just have to click the buttons and see what options are available. And if you don't see any options available you like, send me a note and we'll see if one makes sense for you or what you're trying to do.
Okay. If I were to go that route, what would be the best way to send you a email or anything?
Always at the top of my website is a Contact Us link. That's the best way to do it. There's a link at the bottom also for Contact Us. That goes directly to my phone. That goes directly into my inbox, into my Google Mail. So that's the best way. It comes directly to me, and I see them pop up instantly right after you send it.
Okay, awesome. And I want to mention this to anybody that is working within Amazon. Always check the internal website for job postings. Especially if you're like me that live in the DMV area, I know they've been putting up a lot of open positions for like the IT coordinator or the entry level positions that will require the A+ certification. If you're definitely thinking about getting the program, which I am, definitely look into those jobs and speak with your managers so they can kind of guide you on what you want to get. Because a lot of them do require A+, but some of them I spoke with, they say Network Plus is sufficient, a lot of personal experience, and you being able to say, oh, I've done this sort of things with my own computers. Saying that you have hardware computer experience is always important during the job interview, especially if you're doing an internal promotion within Amazon.
Right. Makes perfect sense. And I think that's one of the things people often discount is if you can move within your existing organization, it gives you a little bit of a leg up. So take advantage of those relationships wherever possible.
Definitely. That's definitely. And I'm definitely doing that since I finally finished my 90 days with the micro position. So I'm going for that website, seeing what other positions I can qualify for.
They got plenty of jobs over at Amazon, so why not keep working on that? Best of luck, Oscar.
All right, and thanks again, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's always an important one to think about, too, is that when you are working for one organization, I mention this to people that talk to me about moving from one type of job to another, but it also works within the same company, is you could be working as a nurse and you're thinking, I want to go into IT, or you're working in a law enforcement and you want to go into IT, or you're working as a truck driver, you want to go into IT. Well, if you're a truck driver, there's plenty of transportation companies with IT positions. If you're a nurse, there's plenty of hospitals. Every hospital is big IT infrastructure. If you're working in law enforcement, every law enforcement organization has an IT department. And that knowledge you have of how the business works or how the organization operates is valuable to the IT side, because there's often a gap. We often focus on operating systems and hardware and networking and security, but there has to be some real world link back to the core of the organization and what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to transport goods? Are you trying to keep people healthy? Are you trying to get people a good retirement? Are you trying to make people safer? Whatever it is, there is a technological reason for you existing and linking together with that goal. And the better you can link those things together, the better IT person you're going to be. It's a constant problem. I wouldn't say problem, but it's a challenge in the industry we used to talk about it a lot when it was, when things were a little bit different, is linking together the technical side with the goals of the organization. It used to be these ties were not very, very easy to keep track of. Companies weren't really understanding how technology worked and what they are doing. I think the industry has changed quite a bit through the years. And now technology is more of the business in almost every respects, in almost every vertical market. So that's why I often tell people, find that group within what you are doing. Just because you work in healthcare now, I mean, you could go get a job in finance and IT. You could go get a job in manufacturing and IT, but the knowledge you have would be invaluable to an IT department that's in healthcare, whether it's with your existing organization or with a different one. So that's the key. I have worked in many different verticals, I guess you want to call it. I've worked in insurance, financial services. I've worked in third-party call center outsourcing. That's one everyone loves. Everyone loves third-party call center outsourcing. I worked there. There was, and then I did other things working for the manufacturers directly. There's something to be learned in all of those cases. There are similarities in every organization, and there's differences. And understanding those similarities and differences can really be a valuable set of skills that you can bring to the table. And many employers would like you to bring those skills to the table. So another one of those things to think about when you're looking for that job, and being able to find the right fit for you. It's always a challenge, isn't it? Find the fit. And that's going to be an important part of where you're going with this. Well, that takes us to, we had a little bit of an overtime on this one. We had a couple of hours of after show on this one, but I appreciate everyone hanging in there. Chat room is still going strong, giving me better ideas on what machine I need to upgrade the SSD in next. You're not wrong, because I do have a machine I need to upgrade my SSD. And thanks for your phone calls, and thanks for being here in the first hour too, where I get to talk the whole time and ask you questions. So that kind of helps out too, to have always someone there giving you the checks and balances and some ideas about what to do next on one of these. If you like the one today, come back in 2 days. On Thursday, we do another one of these for the 220-1002. So if you're studying for your Core 1 exam, eventually you're going to need to study for your Core 2 exam as well. We'd love to have you come back. I've got a whole new set of questions. I've already written them. They're already ready to go. You don't even know what they're going to be yet, but they should be something that can help you with your Core 2, your 220-1002 A+ exam. I'll be here. We'd love to have you here as well. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Core 1 A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.